he's going to bed at night.
Nanny Dowling's waiting to grab you at the top of the stairs, Brendan. Seamus!
He's talking about the dinner again.
Now, Seamus, you know very well that's no way to talk about poor Mrs. Dolan. And you, Brendan, don't be frightening your brother.
Stop coming down the stairs. Open the door, Ma.
Now, boys, be gentle with each other. For birds in their little nests always agree. And when your daddy comes in, we must all tell him that we love him very dearly. Straight out Dickens, that line is.
Hello, Laurie.
I'm not worried, Dad.
Ah, yes, you're Brendan.
Look at me, Dad. I am...
Seamus?
Sit down for your dinner, Frank, and don't be teasing the child.
I'm Domino, Dad.
Ah, so yeah. Ah, well, I was fairly sure you were one of mine. Well, what are they reading for you today, Kathleen?
Oh, Dickens, the old curiosity shop. We're nearly at the end.
Little Nell's just about to snuff it. It's very sad, Dad.
Ah, it must have been heartbreaking for Dickens to write it. Makes me sad even now.
Aye. According to Oscar Wilde, the man who could read the death of the little Nell without dying of laughter must have a heart of stone.
You're a dreadful man, Frank Behan. I believe you make up half the things you attribute to Mr. Wilde and his friends.
Frank was a small man. His workmates called him Stephen, for that was the name on his card, Stephen Francis Behan. In the IRA, he was known as Rosie, not because he had a fine red face and twinkling eyes, but, he told me, in honour of a chief hostess of a Dublin brothel, where he'd slept while on the run from the Black and Tans.
The officer in charge of the Tans asked hero Rosie if she was alone. And being the decent woman she was, Rosie told him there was no one in the brothel, only herself.
What's a broccoli?
Shut up, you thick. That's terrible talk in front of the children, Frank. If they repeat any of it to the nuns, I'd be mortified.
A brothel, son, is a place where men boy love.
You mean there's people that pay for what we get for nothing?
That's about the size of it, son.
They must be out of their minds then. Because every time Granny gives me a kiss, it's exactly like a vampire sucking the life out of a girl on the pictures.
Tell us the rest of the story, Dad.
Well, there's not much to tell. The officer thought that ladies in Rosie's position only thought backwards, so he believed her. I went then to a holy place that the IRA had gotten for me and was promptly arrested, which is proof of the old adage, God never closes one door, but he opens another.
What do you mean Rosie only thought backwards, Dad? Now, Frank Behan, if you dare.
What other door did God open for, Dad?
The door of the prison, you idiot.
And shall us be
How are you, Brian? Come on. Hey, Brendan. Granny wants to see you as soon as possible.
We had me parade tonight. I want to get her on after this final rally. Can't Seamus or Brian go?
Well, she showed us from the window that it's you she wants to see.
Granny wants something to do. Message for her, Sean.
Well, I'm only coming in from work and I haven't had me dinner yet.
But I'm on my parade tonight and my tunic has impressed you.
I'm going to the parade as well.
All right, I'll go myself and get my uniform on. Children, birds in their little nests, remember? Blast the bloody birds in their bloody little nests.
For different reasons, Frank would have different faces. Good Irishman in the best Johnson tradition, he seldom praised anything in the presence of its opposition. Being loud in his condemnation of
Shoddy English influences on Irish culture.
or
Those dreary old Mother Ireland whalers.
whichever the case might be. His mother and father, James and Christine, had liked one another so devotedly that James was forever complaining about there being no divorce laws for Catholics. So, electing for the next best thing, he lay down and died.
I don't suppose you'll ever find another man like him, Mrs. Behan.
No, ma'am. He was an only boy. Thank God.
James was only barely chilled when Granny grabbed hold of a house painter called Patrick English, blessed him with a child of the same name before dispatching his remains to Glasnevin Cemetery to keep her first husband company. And then she returned to take up the business of landlady of the property he had so thoughtfully left behind.
Glad to get the bed to myself I was, Lizzie. Grand when the weather is cold, marriages, but you went to last only a season.
I always thought he was a fine little man, Chris. Lizzie, I used to tell myself when I'd see him walking down the street, if Paddy English was coming home to your cooking, wouldn't you be the happy woman?
Oh, thinking and doing are two horses of a different colour, Lizzie. As for cooking, my fellow was that finicky. Lord God, I'll never forget doing a pig's cheek for him one night and the malevolent sneer on its face. Did you ever see a pig's cheek look at you from the pot sideways, missus?
I suppose it's the only way it could see anything at all, ma'am.
Well, I come up behind it and I jammed the lid down on it with a clatter. And I says to it, "That's the last time you'll ever sneer at me bucko." Then, to steady me nerves, I'd a small ball of malt and the one whiskey led to another. And before I knew where I was I, 3 sheets in the wind.
A body can get fairly gay on balls of malt, ma'am.
No.
Is your cup anywhere near empty?
Yeah.
That's all we'll squeeze from that, ma'am. Was the last pot yours or mine?
Oh, I've only the 2 empty and the 1 full. Oh, must be yours, Lizzie.
A half bottle is not what as was, ma'am.
Sure, nothing is, Lizzie. Nothing is at all anymore now. Where was I?
You'd mastered the pig's cheek.
Oh.
You had him in the pot.
Yes. Well, the cabbage and potatoes boiled nearly to nothing, and I said to myself, the laugh will be on the other side of that pig's cheek be now. So, when I heard Paddy falling up the stairs, I ran and grabbed him out of the pot and planked him on the big willow pattern dish. God almighty, ma'am, I nearly died. Hadn't I completely forgot to turn up the gas? And there that bloody pig sat, a sarcastic leer across his kisser, as much as to say, "I've bested you, ma'am." And no mistake.
Raw, ma'am.
As a publican's hat, missus. Well, like lightning, I covered it up with chunks of cabbage and potatoes and planked it down in front of Paddy. God, ma'am, him and that pig fought each other for hours before he finally gave in. Chrissy whispered, and him exhausted, "If you're ever hanged for cooking, you'll be hanged innocent."
Rory said you wanted me, Gran.
Well, if it isn't me, our sagocious. Come over here and give your gran a big hug.
Getting as big as houses, yous are. And your lovely green suits. Are yous going off to play, or what?
De Valera's final election rally's on tonight, and we're to be his guard of honour.
De Valera. Is he the fella that wants everybody to speak Irish, even if they don't come from the country?
He's the best patriot in the country.
Oh, I'd hardly believe that, child. Sure, in order to prove yourself a patriot, you have to die before temptation gets too great to resist, and sure, he's not even dead yet.
Did you want something, Gran?
I just want you to go over and see if Mrs. Clancy has the little message for me yet, son.
I'm not going, Gran.
Huh?
I'm not going for the little message anymore, Gran. I'm sorry to disobey you, but I just won't do it.
Ah, you mean you haven't time just now? Oh, well, that's all right. You can go in the morning then, son.
I won't do it ever again, Gran. I told Father O'Flanagan what it was I used to collect, and he was shocked. He said you were nothing more than a rack renter.
A what?
Pay no heed to him, man. The child's taking leave of his senses.
You must know, Gran, how wrong it is for people like you to take money off poor people for horrible little tenement rooms.
The world's going out of its mind, ma'am.
And are people not supposed to pay their just and honourable debts? Are they expected to get a roof over their heads for nothing? And who's this Father O'Flanagan?
He's the Republican chaplain, Gran. Some people call him the socialist of God.
And does he let people live in his houses for nothing?
He doesn't have houses. He's just a poor priest.
Oh, God, isn't that the socialists all over? Have nothing yourself and reduce the rest of the world to your own condition.
I'm sorry, Gran, but I'm not going.
Oh, well, we've already established that anyway. Oh, well, off with yous to your meeting. Off with you. You have your fare, I suppose.
We were going to walk.
Ah, well, hold on a minute there now. Hold on, here yous are. Come on. There. Oh, don't become a socialist till you can afford it, son.
Thanks, Gran.
Right, now, and come up and read a bit to your gran in the morning, won't you? Night, son. I love you enough with you now and off with your plum horse.
Night, Gran.
Good night, love. God almighty, Lizzie, but that young Brendan's a caution. They're making a pair of boots for him in Mountjoy prison this minute.
I wonder did Father O'Flanagan say that at all, messes? They seem strange ideas for a priest of God, if you know what I mean.
You'd think it might be in young Brandon's imagination. Oh, you could be more right than we can know. For that child's mind lives in a world of its own, I sometimes think.
Most women cease to celebrate birthdays annually when they reach widowhood, and Chris conformed to the general pattern. She told Frank he'd been born on the 26th of December, nothing else. Had he been less impulsive, it is possible he might have got a record of his arrival in the births, marriages and deaths department of the registrar's office. But this department, however, had the misfortune to be housed in Dublin's Custom House, which Frank and some of his rebel friends saturated in petrol during the War of Independence, before putting a match to it. This was after Frank had struck up a footballing friendship with one Harry Furlong, whose brother Jack's death was to have a great deal of bearing on me and mine. Jack Furlong had little else in life except rebellion. But during the slack period, he found time to court Kathleen Carney. And not only that, he even found time to give her 2 children, Rory and Sean. A man of good nature and physique, he made his way through the entire rebellion unscathed. One night he died. The people said it was flu. He was buried with full military honours by the rebels, and when he had been decently mourned, my father and his widow became engaged.
Ah, so you're the little girl that's going to make Frank happy. This is the child that's going to marry Frank, Lizzie.
So I see, messes. Lord, but hasn't she great courage?
Take off your coat, child. Oh, will you have a little drop of something?
I don't drink, Mrs. English, thank you.
Oh, nor I, girl, nor I. Except when the weather is cold or wet. Though there are some who says it's good for sunstroke. Isn't that right, messers?
Oh, a grand medicine, ma'am, when taken to cure.
Ah, but when some people abuse it the way some people do, it'd make a body sick at the sight of drink.
I think I'll hang my coat up after all, Mrs. English.
Oh, feel the benefit of it when you get out, child. Put it on the tall boy in the other room. In there. Did you ever hear the likes, messers? To criticise a woman for having a drink in her own home.
Like all teetotals, messes. She's gone mad with thirst.
Ah, and this is your second whirl. Isn't it a good thing now you don't believe in the old wives' tale about there being luck in odd numbers? And what did your first poor fella die of? Oh, no, if it's not a rude question.
He got a bad dose of the flu.
Oh, begod, it must have been a hell of a bad dose to have that effect. Still, you won't have that trouble with my poor boy, isn't that right, messer?
Oh, strong as a little horse he is.
I always believe that if you feed a child when he's young, he'll last near enough a lifetime. Oh, do you snuff, miss?
I don't snuff, Mrs. English, nor do I smoke.
And we've already established that you don't drink. Oh, it's a saint he's getting, ma'am.
What's that, ma'am?
Ah, Frank, I said he's marrying a walking saint.
And please God and his blessed mother, it keeps fine for him.
And how in the world, child, do you manage to raise your 2 poor children?
I've got a job with the Dublin Corporation. It's not much, but I get £5 a week.
£5 a week? And Frank only gets 3 as a house painter. Oh, isn't that wonderful?
It gives me enough to dress the children as they need and pay rent.
Rent? Did you hear that, messers? Oh, never forget your rent, child. Oh, 5 and 3 are 8, and with a bit of overtime. Begod, but you'll be starting off from the pig's back, and I could let you have a couple of rooms for... well, we won't go into that now.
As a matter of fact, Mrs. English, I don't intend to go on working after we marry. Well, Frank wouldn't like it. Besides, I think a mother should devote most of her time to our family.
Oh, begod. I'm not losing a son, but gaining 2. And a daughter as well. Oh, be the Lord, it's not every mother gets that for the price of one.
Russell Street was the extreme tip of a jungle of North City tenements. Georgian, red-bricked, straight-laced, and at this time complete with closed hall door and mahogany rail staircases, even a few of the windows were still intact. And if there was only one lavatory per 10 families situated coldly and inconveniently at the bottom of a backyard, that was because slum dwellers had nothing to be ashamed of and didn't, like rich people, need to hide away their toilets. The residents of number 13, Chris's house, and number 14, where Kathleen lived, were a motley bunch. Mr. Redden, who worked for the telephone company, and who was so badly deformed and fallen off of a pole that the other residents used to call him charitably Florence Nightingale Runo. So called because when called upon to aid the dying, she would insist on taking the pillow from under their heads that they might expire more quickly. Mrs. Carroll, the coal man, whose 6-foot-tall son watched as she stumbled to the top of a house with 100 weight of coal on her back and said bitter.
Say, isn't it a terrible country? Poor old woman like her having to do a job like this.
And Mr. Clancy, the cattleman, used to go to Glasgow on a Monday and come back on Friday with a Scots accent.
Is my wee woman no here? If she does not come down and open the house, I'll come up and black the heath.
Most of the married women of Russell Street had husbands of one sort or another. At least half of the men were still living with their wives, even if they didn't talk to them. Yet, though bachelor girl Molly Keel, who cut her throat every time she was jilted, had more in common with Bedlock than any of them, her third left-hand finger was still unadorned. Had she been offered a huge sum of money to tell her life story every Sunday in the newspapers, she would have been forced to decline the fee. Though the tale might have been a most interesting one. It was simple enough. Would have read something like born, bog, reared, man, baby, illegitimate, priest, scandal, hunted, train, Dublin, man, baby, desertion, throat, razor, recovered, isolated, emigrated, Glasgow, man, contraception, deception, miscarriage, and marriage. Oh, Mr. Kelly was dead, and to prove it, there was a notice in the newspaper which read, Kelly, Dublin. At the poorhouse, South Dublin Union, Thomas, dearly beloved husband of Hannah Kelly, after a long illness. Late 4th Battalion Old IRA and Dublin Corporation Cleansing Department. Remains were removed to City Hall yesterday. Full state funeral and requiem mass at 11 o'clock today to Glasnevin Cemetery from Pro Cathedral, Marlborough Street. Old comrades wear medals. English and American papers, please copy. He fought the brave fight.
The Mons Brigade are still at it.
Aye, it's pension night. The only fighting they ever did was getting to the door of the linen hall for their pensions.
It's not stopping Charlie Curran from telling how he lost his index finger to a German bullet.
German bullet, is it? Didn't his wife Annie tell me that a big Scotchman nearly bit the hand off him for not being a Glasgow Celtic supporter?
He got a pension out of it all the same.
And why not, messers? Fighting Germans isn't half as dangerous as being a supporter of any of them football animals.
That young girl's neck must be like a butcher's block, ma'am.
Whose neck?
Molly Keel's, ma'am. She's cut her throat again.
Again?
Again, ma'am. But not over the same chap as last time. I think this one was a travelling salesman.
And where did she do it this time?
Outside his door.
Oh.
I believe somewhere on the south side. Ah, Molly'd never bring disgrace on the street. A sensible enough girl in that way.
We dillied and dallied, dallied and we dillied, lost our way and don't know where to roam. Oh, you won't find nothing like an old time special when you can't find your way home.
Not bad, but I know one.
There's an old mill by the stream.
You know what my favourite is? The medal that Mother gave to me.
I don't think I've heard that one, Giggy.
Well, it goes something like this. This was the blessing my mother gave to me. May God bless mother mine. She gave me a medal to watch over me. May God bless mother mine, for she was my mother, and there is no other. May God bless mother mine. Well, I'm no great shakes as a singer. Anyway, a man goes into battle, and a Hun shoots straight at him. He says to himself, oh, the Lord have mercy on me, but I'm going to be killed. Do you know what happened? Didn't the bullet strike the medal and, guided by the hand of the Blessed Virgin, ricochets off the miraculous medal and kills stone dead an orange man that was standing right behind him?
We'd a fella like that. Like a Tom bullet struck his medal, was deflected. Straight up his nose, blew the top of his head off.
Oh, he's a very clever chap, but he's a very odd sense of humour, if you ask me.
Daft as a piano. Went out fighting, got nothing for it. Fighting for his country, he said he was.
He was right. Doesn't his mother own the bloody street?
By 1932, the people were slowly getting used to the idea that work would not be any more plentiful under the Republic than it had been under the Crown. Frank was lucky, for here he was still working this year. But for other house painters, 9 months was still their work ration, as it had been before the Rising.
I'm going to bed for Christmas. Call me mother. In March.
Ah, but maybe Dev would change all that.
And then there was a big fanfare of trumpets, some band playing Uncle Pat's soldier song, and then Dev came forward to speak. He said how England were draining off the wealth of the farmers, and we're using the Irish market to meet our own ends, and...
Ah, he'd only be interested in bogs or fields or anything that looks like land. Ah, no good for city folk, son.
I've plenty to say for the workers, Gran. I think he'd make a good associate as Father O'Flanagan, wouldn't you, Sean?
I couldn't understand half of what you were saying.
All the blood and tears have been shed, he told us. That line comes from the poet Byron and shows how well read a man he is. He then pointed out how Labour's interests were the same as his own, and he recalled how the socialist James Connolly had the biggest influence on him when he was a young man.
Take it easy, child. You'll have a seizure. Go on.
And the chairman got up after him to announce the collection and to say how Dev was too modest to say how religious he was. And that was the answer to those who accused him of being an antichrist. And how he went to Mass every morning and didn't think people should drink or smoke.
Tell us, does he drink or smoke himself?
Dev? Yeah. Of course not. And he doesn't like dirty books either. And if he's elected, he'll censor all the Sunday newspapers. And he won't allow betting on horses. And he had a special word to say about the evils of jazz.
Oh, I don't think, son, that politics is any religion for a saint.
Oh, he's not much interested in politics either, Gran. For he told us how he'd interviewed a young man who wanted to work on his paper, the Irish Press. The man said he wasn't much interested in politics, and Deb replied, neither am I, to be honest.
Well, isn't he the fine man for all seasons?
The native industries of Russell Street were drink and cleanliness, represented respectively by the Mountjoy Brewery and the Phoenix Laundry. And the aroma from this mixture was what you might expect of alcohol brewed from carbolic. We had a grocer's, green and otherwise, a bookmaker shop, and of course the pub. So there was never any need for anyone to leave Russell Street unless he had to go to work. We were self-sufficient, down to the evening mail delivered every evening by Mr. Kennedy, the man whom Frank insulted by offering him a tip at Christmas. Oh, you poor are all alike, says he. Work 2 months of the year and you're throwing your money around like a man with no arms.
Tell me, Ma, when I go home, the boys won't leave the girls alone. They pull me hair, toss me comb, but that's all right till I go home. She is handsome, she is pretty, she is the belle of Dublin City. She has lovers 1, 2, 3. Pray now tell me who they be. She is handsome, she is pretty, she is the belle of Dublin City. She has lovers.
And you can see the second programme in Teems of Time next Thursday at 7:30.
In 1932, the political situation was not good, nor was the industrial side of affairs. There was mass unemployment, a general strike was threatened, and the employers in the building industry marked time slowly. So slowly, in fact, that work was almost at a standstill. Frank did get a job, however. Indeed, when other folk were in the direst of straits, the Behans never went hungry. Christine helped, and Kathleen's brother Jimmy sent the occasional few dollars from the States. But other folk were asking, how long would the lack of work last? Disillusioned by the dampened squib of pure idealism, they did not realise that their leaders had sold them down the drain. And with the national movement in the hands of priests and politicians who'd never fired a shot in anger, except during the grouse season, a new nation was planned for the benefit of Irish Islander businessmen and shopkeepers. The Republic was up for grabs to the hucksters of history. All the aspirations of the movement would be realised in the marking of a garment, Dienta Sanerin, made in Ireland. Mourn everything Irish but our doles. A few Republicans did remember that men like Connolly and Pearse had agreed to die for a people's republic. And one understanding priest, Father Michael O'Flanagan, told his flock that if they didn't have bread, it was a Christian thing to fight for it.
Will you be working late tonight, Frank?
I doubt it very much. Indeed, I'm lucky to have a job at all. If it wasn't for Charlie Gooden, I'd be walking the streets of Dublin, same as everybody else.
Oh, my heart goes out to them. When I see them in their worn shoes, and the look of despair in their eyes. Ah, Steph. Maybe when Dev gets in.
Hope you're right.
Giggles Devy, handyman extraordinary and good neighbour of the street. He taught us how to box, how to play football, how to abuse countrymen, and how to be patriotic to the one country that was worthwhile, Russell Street. He was in favour of the rebels in 1916 because he thought they were setting fire to the General Post Office in defence of the city. Had anyone told him that the Republicans were actually fighting for the freedom of the whole country, he'd never have believed them. He wasn't a lazy man, indeed anything but. And yet the idea of employment he could never have tolerated.
Come in, friend.
Morris, Stephen.
Morning, Giggles.
I met old Kennedy, the paper man, below.
That's very good of you, Giggles. Care for a cup of tea?
Because I wouldn't say no. Morning, Mrs. Behan.
Good morning, Mr. Devy. I was full of thought too.
What?
The Irish, Giggles. It means how are you?
Oh, well, I'm still the same old 6 and 8pence. I thought that was for the kids, Mum. The language, I mean. I didn't know the grown-ups was able to understand it.
That's sure 100 years ago in Dublin, everybody spoke it.
It's a bloody good job. I wasn't alive then. I'd have had to know when to talk to at all. Oh, just a 1 spoon of sugar, Mum, thank you.
Doing some work for Mrs. English.
I'm going to put a lock on the tube her back.
Mrs. Barton's place. Why does she need a lock, I wonder?
It wasn't her idea, Mum. The landlady wants it.
Why is that?
Well, Mrs. English says she's evicted.
But the woman is away at work in the country. What did she do for a roof for her little baby?
Well, Mrs. English says if she don't pay, she don't stay. Maybe you better talk to her about it yourself, ma'am.
I most certainly will.
Well, I'd better be off before your mother gives me walking papers as well, Stephen. Mind the work now.
Do me best, Giggles.
Thanks for the tea, ma'am.
And thank you, Mr. Devy. Well, did you ever hear the likes? See that mother of yours, Frank. Now, Frank Behan.
Kathleen, I've enjoyed me breakfast. I'm ready to face the day. But the one thing I am not prepared to face is me mother.
Well, I'll have plenty to say to her about Christianity.
Yeah, you do that, Kathleen. Ah, sweet Jesus, the poor devil.
What is it? The bad news?
They've disgraced themselves again. It's Father O'Flanagan. The bishop won't let him say Mass. It was announced late last night that Father Michael O'Flanagan had been suspended from all pastoral duties until...
Kathleen's people had been farming stock. My father had owned shops.
4 of them. God almighty couldn't even have left one of them behind.
And it must be admitted that Kathleen did not think Stephen was doing her any great favours in taking her to live as a tenant of his mother's. In fact, she was quite convinced that Stephen, or Frank as she preferred to call him, came from a low lot. And to prove it, here was this monstrous woman about to commit her greatest vulgarity yet in evicting a woman, a working woman, with a young child.
Me, Kathleen. Why, I never said one uncharitable word about Mrs. Barron. Sure, I never even noticed she wore no wedding ring. As I told one of the neighbours, should the man could be dead or in England, the blackguard.
But you're going to evict her. Throw her and her little child into the street, Mrs. English.
Only because she's 4 weeks behind in her rent. Not because she might be bringing the place into disrepute. Now, I'm as broad-minded as they come, Kathleen, but, well, rent is rent.
Mrs. English, the Lord our Saviour would not look kindly on your disposition this morning.
Christianity is it, look it. I took that one in off of the street. She takes me lovely room, for which, if I were interested in money, I could charge 3 shillings to some ignorant bogman, and her I charge only a half a crown.
Half a crown?
Ah.
That closet? How could you, ma'am?
Now look at you're doing her no good, Kathleen Kearney. Out she goes, bag and baggage. She'll pay me what she owes me when she gets it. Oh, like me fella, when he'd go off drinking and tell me that if he didn't see me through the week, he'd see me through the window. Ha-ha! But that old game's quite played out.
You told Frank and I that you supported Mr. De Valera and his promise to make a better life for all.
Well, of course I do, and I supported poor Parnell.
But don't you see? Mr. De Valera can't do anything for the people unless he ends the rack-renting rule of landlords, and Mrs. Barton has a young child.
Look, the way I understand it is Mr. De Valera wants to end the rule of English landlords, and quite right too. But that's got nothing to do with Mary Barton. And as for her little child, am I supposed to be the brat, priest, politician and polis man?
But Mrs. English, it's coming on to Christmas.
Christmas or Easter, she's not eating her plum pudding here. Out she goes! Bag and baggage. She's given a bad example to the other tenants. I mean, after a while, none of them will pay me a brass penny.
Mrs. Barton.
Ah, come in, child. Come right in and as welcome as the flowers of May.
Would you like to sit, Mrs. Barton?
Oh, that's right, Mary. Always take the weight off of your feet every chance you get. You must have been reading our minds. We were just talking about you when you came in. Isn't that right, Kathleen?
That's right, Mrs. English.
Wondering how you and your little girl were getting on. I wonder, says I to Kathleen, how poor Mrs. Barron and her little girl are getting along, and you walk straight in that door. Frank was saying there's a special word for that now. Can you remember what it was, Kathleen?
Judgment, I should imagine.
Ah, no, child, no. The word I had in mind was serendipity. A happy accident, don't you know? But I'm sure 'tis no happy accident that brings you here to visit them as wants to be your friends.
Well, to tell you the truth, Mrs. English, I've been simply worried out of my mind since I heard you were going to put me and me little daughter out in the street.
Who said that, ma'am? What scandal-mongering bitch has been spreading such tales about me? Who dare tell such lies about me, Christine English, and you, Mary Barron? You believe that of a woman like me?
Well, I don't know what to believe.
Oh, how could you believe it, let alone credit it? And your poor little girl, may heaven help her and stop her from growing a fairy. And it coming on to Christmas. Oh, never listen to gossip, child. For if it's bad to invent it, it's worse to repeat it.
There you are, Kathleen. And you, Mrs. Barron. And yourself, Messrs.
Oh, and it's sorry to the Sacred Heart I am to be here and a living witness to all I've just listened to. Lizzie McHugh, be you me witness that God may be me judge. Mary Barron and her little girl will have a home, while I, Christine English, have one fuss over their grave.
Oh, Mrs. English, how can I ever thank you?
Now, run along now, love, and you too, Kathleen, and tell that to the calumniators, that if they know one thing, you know another, and they're both different.
Come on, Mrs. Barton.
Well, of all the damn cheek. She doesn't pay her rent for nearly 4 weeks, and then has the impertinence to object to me putting her out. Oh, but out she'll go, bag and baggage. No rent, no tent, as them Arab people might say.
But, messes, you just told her.
Don't mind what I've just told her. Sure, we can be enemies in a friendly sort of a way. We're not bloody pagans altogether.
Quick, Dickens, raise the alarm. The money lenders just come into the street.
Oh, they're pulling the old cat. You must know the Grand National's on tomorrow. Here, Sean, you nip down and tell them number 14, and when you're done there, slip along to number 12. Me and Neddy look after this place. Here, keep the cards around. Jesus, come on.
What's wrong? Why can't
Is that you in the lavatory, Mrs. Brownell? You better get into hiding quick. The money lender's on the move.
You know you can't.
What's wrong with everybody?
The money lenders on his way, Mrs. Redden.
Well, Julia Redden and all belonging to her have no need to go slinking and sliding every time a body comes for his just and honourable death.
Would you go away and mind looking around gramophone, will you?
Come out here, Crook, and let the world see you've nothing to be ashamed of.
What is it, Julia?
Stand right there, Crook Redden.
Why, Julia?
Because we're about to be visited by the money lender.
But we have no truck with money lenders.
No, but I don't intend that any nasturtiums aimed at other improvident people should find their way in our direction.
The word is aspersions, Julia.
Don't you dare criticise me speech. Be Jason, but you haven't a figure for it.
And your name is?
The God, the police wouldn't ask me that.
Come on, missus, I haven't all day. How much do you owe?
Julia Redden and all belonging to her have ever lived by the word that is right. Never a borrower nor a lender they.
Redden. No. Sorry, if I give you any trouble, missus.
I wouldn't wear out your shoes tramping up them stairs, mister.
No, boy.
The other residents is away for the spring.
Sure.
Shride Talbot. Talbot Street. Cul-de-sac. Cul-de-sac. Lord God, isn't the Gaelic language wondrous beautiful? Soon there wouldn't be an English nameplate in the entire city. Well, thank God the men in 1916 didn't give their lives in vain.
Well, what did I tell you? They do go to Rivieras when the weather gets cool. Oh, lovely language, my gentlemen.
Only one place still had its old name, the Labour Exchange. Oh, the Republic wouldn't bother to change that, should there be no need for that building at all now. In the spring of 1932, a general election was planned. On my right, at 5 foot something and a bit, I give you the champion, William T. Cosgrave. And on my left, right and centre, at 6 foot odd, the brewery challenger, Eamon de Valera. Or in English, Eamon de Valera.
Is on me eye. Whoever gets in or whoever's put out, the likes of you and me will still be doing the same job, huh? Here, put your thumps on that.
Ever since that old one got that bloody gramophone yoke, she has me heard in the stride.
Yeah, me too. If this keeps up, we'll have to go out for indoor sports.
The old one seems to be having trouble with the ass again, Sean.
Not as much trouble as I'm having with her. You know what I'm going to tell you? If it's not the ass, it's the cart. If the cart's all right, she's complaining about the pains in her back because the sacks are too full. Man, I do tell her. A bad workman always quarrels with his tools.
Oh, so that's the way you start looking for work. A right share of wasters in this country, ever since the authority of the king was disputed. Be a gang of ruffians that don't want to work and get paid more than the king himself for doing it. They ask the people to vote. Vote! I'd no more think of voting for an Irishman in politics than I think of asking the Earl Haig himself to buy a sack of coal. And an yourself and Lord London Daly, the biggest coal owners in the place.
Ah, that's enough of that.
He's not playing.
I was winning. Have you no heart, Giggles? Have you no pity? How would you like it if that was your own having to climb them stairs?
It must be hard for you.
Hard? How could you vote for anyone in this country when a poor old woman like my mother is forced to do a job the likes of that?
Ah, hello, Shay. Who's the new nun?
She has holy glasses, Gran.
Holy glasses? Who told you that?
Everybody knows that she has holy glasses. You know when she's out of the class for a minute, or when her back is turned while she's reading writing on the blackboard.
Oh, reading right now. Oh.
Well, she knows everything that's going on behind her, and that's only because she can see backwards through her holy glasses.
Oh.
You don't believe me?
Ah, well, we never said that, did we, Lizzie?
Eddie Richardson found a dead mouse, and when he was fed up playing with it, he put it down Bernard Keegan's shirt, and Bernard Keegan screamed. He's a real sissy, Bernard Keegan.
What happened then?
Well, Sister Bernadette turned around and pointed straight at Charlie Mack, and she said, Charlie Mack, say 3 Haily Marys every 3 hours.
And is Charlie doing what he was told?
I don't see how he can, since he only knows half a Haily Mary, and he can't tell the time at all.
Poor Charlie. I will off with you now, playing with your gang in the street.
Did you not hear your gran? She doesn't want any messages today. Go on, enjoy yourself, son.
There's no day this is at all.
Oh, it's Friday, isn't it? This is the first Friday of the month.
It's pocket money night.
Oh, so it is. Fancy a grown girl like me forgetting a thing like that now. Oh, well, here you are, Pat. Oh, hold on. Are you a halfpenny or a penny?
A halfpenny, Gran.
Oh.
But only until next week.
Oh, that can only mean one thing, Lizzie.
He's making his Holy Communion next week. Well, God bless us, but the years outstrip us no matter how fast we go.
And Masters, will you measure me for me communion suit?
That I will, child, that I will. And this very evening. And I'll make you one every bit as fine as the one I made for Brendan. Every night for a week I sat up making that velvet suit. And when I saw young Brendan with his face shining like an angel on the morning of his Holy Communion, it was worth every stitch.
Oh, not velvet, Miss McHugh. Not like Brendan's one. Older fellas laughed at him and said he was like a little sissy. And he couldn't wait to get home to take it off him. And he kept me awake all night crying and saying his communion day had been ruined.
I never knew. I never knew.
Do you know what these are? We used to call them makes, or flyers. They are, of course, the impedimenta of pitch and toss. The big fellas used to play this a lot around here, in the summertime, when the weather was good for outdoor sports. Another outdoor sport was chasing Protestants. All Protestants were rich and wore good clothes, and they never played in the streets. They were sissies, and when the big fellas would see them coming over the bridge from Jones's Road, they used to shout out, "Proddy dog!" And if there was only a few of them, the fellas would jump on them and throw their caps in the muck. I told Charlie Mack that Ma said that Wolf Tone was a Protestant, and he hit me a dig for saying a sin. Proddy dogs always had clean faces, and their hair was always combed, and they used to carry their school books in a leather bag over their shoulders. Sometimes you wanted to be a Proddy dog, so you could have a leather bag on your shoulder too. Then you had to tell that to the priest in confession. And the priest did ask you not to do it again, and he'd tell you to go to the end of the chapel and say 5 Haily Marys. Well, you had to be very careful which confession box you lined up at in the chapel, because some of them, like the canon, could be very hard, and you might get 4 Haily Marys and 2 Our Fathers for just the smallest little venial sin. Mortal sins were terrible things altogether. And the very first time I went to confession, I had one for the canon. He was sitting behind a little hatch, and although it was pitch dark, and the wood smelled funny, not soapy, kind of old clean, I knew the canon was ready for me because I heard the hatch on the other side close, and that sinner go for his penance. What does the priest do with all the old sins? Does he give them to someone else, and someone else to someone else, and it goes all the way up to the Pope? And what does the Pope do with them? Does he give them to the Holy Ghost, and the Holy Ghost give them to God the Father, and God the Father give them to our Lord and Master Jesus Christ for to throw down into hell's fire to burn forever and ever, world without end, amen.
Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. This is my first confession.
I've been learning it all the week from Sister Rita, and it was hard when you were alone with no one to help you. No kind sister to say, not last confession, child, first confession. Bernard Keegan's uncle was killed by a cannon.
Yes, my son.
One end. All the difference it makes between a priest and a gun.
I stole coloured pencils from Bernard Keegan, whose father owns a shop in Ballybock.
I suppose he'd be all right if you could see his face.
Will you never do it again, my son?
No, Father. Honest to God, I won't.
He could shoot you down too, I expect.
Yes, my son. Go on.
I had impure thoughts, Father.
What were they, my son?
After I got a beating from me ma, I called her a bloody bitch under me breath.
Best thing was, tell all the venial sins first, so the canon would know the terrible character you were when it came to the mortaler.
I did dirty things, Father.
What kind of dirty things, my son?
I rubbed bellies with our little crook's daughter. Then Charlie Mac and me went to the lavabo on the North Circular, and he showed me his thing, and I gave him a look at mine.
The canon asked me how old I was, and when I said I was 7, he told me to say 5 Hail Marys and 2 Our Fathers. I couldn't remember all the Our Father, only half. So I said 4 half ones and went home.
Oh, we're ruined! Oh, we're ruined entirely! The name of God is wrong, Mrs. Redden.
Amen, devil is in power, and now there's nothing left to be done but pack up and save for morning before Dublin sinks to the bottom of the bay.
How could you know?
Blockade on a new Christmas lad. Oh, I curse the day they ever invented a thing as quick as that never gives bad news the time to change its mind.
Up, devil, he's the leader of the boys. With all their heads about to lead the Irish green and white. Our race and glorious heroes, all the hand of England's right. And we crown devil the king of Ireland.
The unemployed people of Ireland had turned out in their thousands to vote an end to unemployment for all times. When the votes were counted, it was seen that Mr. De Valera's party had 72 seats, as opposed to the 44 he had previously. Mr. Cosgrave had 57, but then he could rely on 9 Conservative votes and 5 more from the farmers. So the big question was, would the Labour Party cast their 7 votes with Mr. Cosgrave or with Mr. De Valera? After some political juggling, the leaders of the Labour Party thought they might have some reason to support Fianna Fáil. Well, it might be an opportunity to do good for someone, even if it was only themselves. Apart from his promise to open the jail gates if his party was sent to legislate, Dev's political programme might have been summed up with the slogan, "The others have robbed you long enough, now we want the chance." In went the long fella, resolved to carve out a policy which would, after another election, ensure the return of a political machine that no man or party would challenge for a long time.
Here's Rory with the sup at last, and Seamus coming after him with 3 large bottles. Will you take your time, or you'll spill the jug?
Oh, Lord Almighty, the excitement. Oh, ma'am, you're not working this evening. Your eyes will be wore out.
I got held up during the week when the nuns asked me to make 2 shrouds, and to the boys making this communion in a few days.
Oh, brilliant idea, the great time outside, there's people.
Oh, take it easy, child, the house isn't on fire.
And there's great fun in the pub with people singing and dancing and a melodeon playing and men dancing with men. It's like Christmas.
And I got 4 pennies for singing We Crowned Devil
Good
King of
man.
Ireland.
Hey, listen, Grandad, there's nothing else you want me go, because they're lighting more bonfires and I don't want to miss the fun.
All right, child, but don't light anything near the property.
Very sure that De Valera's gang's going to be any different to the ones that are on the way out. They'll get a right drop if it's back to square one for the whole country. What do you think, Messer?
Sure, isn't it the way a fella says a thing that people vote for? Sure, even old Alfie Byrne that brought the scabs out against Larkin's Union has forgotten that he's supposed to be standing for king and country.
They say that De Valera's the new Cornell, ma'am.
Not if he came from 22 countries.
You're wearing your little velvet suit.
true, Bren. I didn't know you liked it.
I love it, Mrs. McHugh, but I only wear it on very special occasions.
The nun was right. That boy's a bloody genius.
Go home, the boys won't leave the girls alone. They pull me hair and toss me comb, and that's all right till I go home. She is handsome, she is pretty, she is the belle of Dublin city. Knock on the door and ring on the bell, allow me through the fire.
Life in a tenement house was about as private as having a bath in Piccadilly Circus. Everyone knew how much food was in your cupboard, and the number of pawn tickets stuck discreetly behind the old china dog.
Oh, there you are, Mrs. Stephen. Hey, come here. The Behans are having a sausage cockle for the dinner. Pork ones, too.
Oh, sure, beef ones would be far below our ladyship's dignity.
Ma spoke differently from other folk, and because she spoke differently, they treated her differently. Oh, not to our face, of course. But behind our back, someone would say...
She wouldn't drink tea out of a cracked cup, she told me.
Asher, it's well known that all her eggs have 2 yolks.
Well, as I said to her, she'll see the day she'll be glad of a little bit of jam,
Yet I never saw the kitchen dresser without that one piece of china, Ma's teacup. From home, maybe I got me aversion to thick glasses. I can't enjoy a pint out of one. There were twice as many hours in a tenement day as there were in any other. No one was ever in a rush. People would stop you in the street to talk, without ever really asking had they the time. And the nearest anyone ever got to haste was summed up by Crook's reply to the tram driver when the latter asked him if he wanted to get on. Oh, no, thanks, Crook, I'm in a hurry, I better walk. Nor would anyone ever cross the street in pursuit of conversation. They'd merely open the front window, if they didn't live in the back, and carry on about the most delicate topics from one side of the street to the other.
Hey, Mrs. I forgot to ask you, did Molly get over her confinement yet?
Any minute now, Mrs. Kenny, ma'am. Thanks for asking.
Well, let's hope the dirty bastard marries her anyway.
If he's not married already, Mrs.
Russell Street was a great place for meaningful nicknames. Mrs. Kenny was known as Half a Rasher because she had at one time split her bacon sandwich with Molly Keel, and the latter, being grateful, gave her the title, a permanent acknowledgement to the woman's unstinted generosity. More often than not, though, people earned their pet names through some physical disability. Well, like, for instance, the Grinner Grimes. He had a scar which ran from the bottom of his left ear to the corner of his mouth, gave him a perpetual leer, and was the source of never-ending worry to that unfortunate man. Naturally kind-hearted, he was sympathetically interested in the welfare of everyone he met. Sorry to hear about your poor wife's death, mister. But the scar gave him a terrible ha-ha-he, and usually earned the poor Grinner a thick ear. So he gave up inquiring about other people's welfare. And the neighbours, naturally enough, promptly dubbed him that surly old bastard. Then there was Mrs. Dawn. She was known as WC, in honour of the most embarrassing physical disorder, bowels over which she could exercise no control, and which prompted unkind children like me to taunt...
Grandma, you're spilling your message!
...as she ran horse-like along the street. The older people accepted the tenements for what they were, homes with less drafts than the Phoenix Park and fewer leaks than the sky. Bit by bit, the once graceful Georgians fell or were torn apart. Sensible people, refusing to suffocate during the long, hot summer of 1930, ventilated their staircases by throwing rocks through the fanlight windows. And the bitter winter of 32 took its toll of hall doors, back doors and handrails. Top-of-the-house tenants had to be on their guard, lest their means of ascent and descent were removed in the interest of warmth. The younger people were a bit more uppish in their tastes. They created a dream world, inhabited by Al Jolsons and Rudolph Valentinos. Their homes were really situated not in the slums of Monto, but far away on the Pacific seaboard, Sunset Boulevard.
Mary, are you up there?
What is it, Ma?
Your fella's waiting at the door.
Tell him I'll be down in just a teeny-weeny moment, Mama. I'm just finishing my toilet.
Well, if you are, then make sure you empty it yourself.
Like the folk singers of old, they sang of kings and queens, of ladies in carriages, never of themselves. And why shouldn't they add a bit of colour to lives spent in the biscuit factories and laundries of Dublin? When I was 1, the main topic of conversation was something called the Wall Street crash. Oh, and the first talkie. Uncle Jimmy wouldn't be sending any more money from America. Hadn't been a great deal, but its loss would be felt all the more since Frank had once again been knocked idle.
And that old Marx had the cheek to wish me a prosperous new year.
Julia Redden's gramophone got a new song.
Once I built a
railroad to the sun,
made it rain
on mother land. Once I built a railroad, now it's done. Buddy, can you spare a dime?
Jesus!
Al Jolson's new picture presented a problem, but not for long.
If we pledged your suit, we could get to it. But then it looked so well on you.
It looked twice as well on the pawn office counter.
And with a light heart, the couple made their way to the North City Money Office.
How much, ma'am?
30 bob, John.
On how many, ma'am?
God, but you're terrible funny, John.
Give you 25, ma'am.
28, John.
26 and cut me throat.
There's not a blade sharp enough, John. Give us the money and let's see your lip.
1/6 coat up, and the name is Carney. Thanks, Mrs. Behan.
Of course, Granny knew that the talkies were responsible for the way young people were growing up without any regard for other people's property. And she confidently predicted that they'd lead the world into a dreadful state.
Who ever heard, Lizzie, of anyone in their right senses travelling to an entertainment on the proceeds of a visit to the pawn? Because it's an honest and honourable act to raise money for food and go naked in the sight of your neighbours. But to strip yourselves to the skin to see Egypts, and American Egypts at that, make common fools of themselves on a public stage.
Well, they don't do it on a stage, ma'am.
What do you mean, girl?
The entertainment, ma'am. I believe it takes place on a wall.
As a taking leave of your senses you are, Lizzie McHugh. How could they do it there and not in the ordinary place?
They don't be there in person, ma'am. Only pictures of themselves.
Pictures of themselves?
Flashed on the wall. The same as your hand could be seen if you was to put it in front of a candle. The talk comes, I believe, from a hurdy-gurdy like the one Owl Crook has below.
Oh, sweet Jesus. Gone to the pawn to get money to pay to see pictures of people. Ah, the world, Lizzie's gone madder and madder.
Indeed, ma'am. It takes all sorts to make it.
They're whitewashing the wall. Whitewashing the wall, ma'am.
The Madigans. They're whitewashing the outside of number 26.
Whitewashing me lovely property. Oh, well, we'll soon put a stop to that. Call out to them, Lizzie, to desist at once.
Mrs. English says you're to stop marking that wall this instant.
It's right, ma'am. Right, ma'am. Ah, you must be mistaken. The Madigans can't even read.
God bless our Lord, it says.
Oh. Giggles! Giggles!
You called, Mrs. English.
The Madigans are defacing the... What in the name of God is that? What is it? If it's not an impertinent question.
It'll go round the house. Round the hall door, don't you see?
Round our hall door, Mr. Devoy.
Oh, not around our hall door, Giggles.
But it's for the competition, Mrs. English.
What competition is that, Mr. Devoy?
Well, there's 20 prizes for the best religious slogans in the 20 best streets of the city of Dublin during this year, the Eucharistic Congress.
Prizes? What sort of prizes, Giggles?
Well, there's nothing that you could eat or drink or even touch, ma'am, if it comes to that. But the Archbishop is giving away from 1 million indulgences for the best prayer painted in a street in Dublin, down to maybe 20 or 30,000.
Indulgences, Giggles, but you can't spend them until you're dead.
Ah, well, sure. The way it is, ma'am. Sure, I wouldn't be in the running anyway.
Why not, Mr. Devoy?
Ah, Giggles is a Protestant, ma'am.
Is that so? I never knew that. You don't look like a Protestant, Mr. Devoy. But I suppose, now that I think about it, you're a well-mannered... Yes, I suppose you would be a Protestant.
Well, I was thinking, ma'am, that if I won, like, I could maybe sell them, like. There's a chap up in Fitzgibbon Street. Oh, God, he's a miserably religious man altogether, God bless him. He has himself surrounded by holy pictures and saintly relics and owl prayers that only give 100 indulgences for 6pence. Can you imagine what he'd pay for 1 million? Hey, Jesus, Johnny, be made.
Oh, you're a desperate character altogether, Giggles. Ah, go on and put up your prayer, just as long as it's not on the bare wall. Oh, and tell the Madigans to wash theirs off. For if they are going to heaven itself, they're not travelling at my expense.
1932 was a great year for excitement. Catholics from all over the world were coming to Dublin because the Pope had selected the capital of Ireland as the venue for celebrating the Eucharistic Congress. And shopkeepers, whose hands up to now had been chained, were scraping the surface of their pockets and sparing the price of a wash and a varnish to the front of their properties, in the hope that they'd get it all back and more from the international pilgrims. Painters were even working overtime this February. Oh, Lord God, wasn't it great to be alive and a Christian? And then, just as Ireland was about to celebrate the 1500th anniversary of our patron saint, the British Secretary of State for Dominion Affairs told Mr de Valera that Ireland owed Britain £5 million and His Majesty's government wanted the money right now. Mr J.H. Thomas wasn't the least bit interested in St. Patrick or his birthday. He was only a debt collector. He was just doing what he was told.
Will you listen just a minute, Mr. Thomas? I've a sharp pain in me Royal Irish Vice-Regal Lodge through putting up with the jeers and jibes of the IRA. Every time some Egypt mentions this oath of allegiance to your monarch, I'm fed up with the whole business. And I'm going to abolish it, and that's that.
Well, Mr J.H. Thomas, British Secretary of State for Dominion Affairs, was considerably less interested in who swore fealty to whom than he was in the subject of if and when the Irish government was going to remit to His Majesty the rent, agreed jointly before Dev came into office, as just and fair in return for the lease of the 26 counties.
What? What in the name of God are you talking about, Mr. Thomas? I'm talking about the land annuities, which your predecessor, William T. Cosgrave, agreed to pay us. £5 million. Sure, no lunatic would agree to remit the quarter of a country's tax reserves in rent. That's the contract we signed with Mr. Cosgrave. £5 million, and that's the little matter I've been referring to, sir. Who are you trying to cod, bigod? Deceive? Me? How dare you, sir? Take a look at that. Called Heads of the Ultimate Financial Settlement. Signed, sealed and delivered 12th of February 1923.
Well, Dev's worst fears had been realised. The previous government had lied about the country's indebtedness to England. How brazen could they get, he wondered. Mr. Cosgrave, when questioned about the ultimate financial settlement with the Crown, had told the Irish House of the great bargain he'd struck in cancelling out the national debt with one big nought. Oh, hell of a great bargain. 6 big noughts and a 5 in front of them.
I'll not pay. I'm the head man here now, and you'll not get a light. Let you go ask Mr. Cosgrave for your money. Is that the way, Mr. D? That's the way, Mr. T. Then it's war, Mr. D. Economic war.
So, an undeclared economic war, whatever that was, began between Britain and Ireland. And all that was left of the Eucharistic Congress was prayer. Which I suppose is as it should be. Trade declined rapidly. The British imposed duties on goods from Ireland and we imposed duties on imports. It was very good, though, for understanding the geological and agricultural aspects of geography. I mean, bananas did not proliferate in the rocks of County Galway. And no farmer from Kilkenny ever grew oranges worth a damn. Even coal had to be imported. Although we did have a fine substitute for that.
Ah, thank God, but that'll be a lot easier on me poor mother's back than that heavy old English coal.
But where is it? Me and Stephen Behan was discussing it last night. Turf it's called. It grows wild out in the country.
Is there an annual crop?
It grows wild, man. That's what they make the bogs out of.
Yeah, sure, the whole of the place outside of Dublin is covered in it. There's nothing else.
That's where the word bogman comes from.
Ah, but you lot of Jackeens is glad of the bogman now. Take care the country folk don't look for separation. Better put the Jackeens in the right stew.
Who put that there?
Oh, it's what
Maybe the Lord looked down and them that's lost their nostrils. Did that country bitch put that drive manure in front of me door to thwart me? Well, be the living God what I do for her.
There, ma'am. Sean's mother, Mrs. Caddy, left it there. It's the new stuff with the pudding instead of coal.
Are you taking a ride out of me, giggles?
That God may strike me dead, ma'am. But that's the new fuel. Turf it's called.
Well, it won't do me. And Sean Cattle, you can go home and tell your mother I want the old-fashioned black coal. And on principle, I'll have nothing to do with country people.
But there won't be no more coal, ma'am. It comes from England, and they're not going to send us any more.
It's all because of the comic war, Mrs. Redden.
Comic war?
And he means the economic war. The one we've been having with England.
We're as warm as England, you're joking.
Well, be good we are, ma'am. It's been going on for a couple of weeks now.
Well, I only hope the British never find out, because if they do, they'll destroy us.
I don't know so much about that, ma'am. After all, there's good goods in small parcels.
Ah, go along home and let him sense giggles. Sure, His Majesty will bait the lot of us with the belt of his cap.
Oh, is that so?
And without sweating.
A short tour of Dublin's numerous pawn offices would have persuaded even the most disinterested observer that the population of the capital had been engaged in an economic war long before the official one was undeclared. Not that the people thought of it in such a light, or referred to it by such highfalutin terms. They knew it only as poverty. Foolishly, they believed it was no crime.
Good Lord, there's no point in taking that with me. Every blessed week. God, how did the others laugh and joke about it? I do laugh and joke about it myself. God almighty, it's a terrible world, and a body must die each Friday. Still, it's nothing to be ashamed of.
Somebody very rich must have said that poverty was nothing to be ashamed of, and the poor picked it up. Was it Conmee a publican? A politician? Maybe even a pawnbroker?
The sugar can't do without them anyhow. Yeah, and young Larry can take a can up to the cattle market. God, it's terrible to think of all that lovely milk being run into the gutter. Still, I suppose the poor beast has to be relieved. Fish, too. Mr. Behan was telling my sailor that to do throw it back into the sea when they don't get what they think is a proper price.
From behind the china dog on the mantel shelf, she took a large piece of brown paper for which she'd paid the pawnbroker a halfpenny on our last visit. She smoothed out the folds and placed the freshly pressed clothes in the middle and drew the four corners together into the centre. There was never any string in the house when a body needed it. So she threw the potatoes out of her large leather market bag, and our parcel was swallowed up. What did she put in the bundle?
Was it a tablecloth, 2 vests and a shirt, or was it a shirt, 2 tablecloths and a vest? Oh, God, what am I thinking about? On the spudge, I can't leave them there in the bed.
Well, now she remembered it was 2 vests. Well, at least she knew how much to expect. If she put the potatoes into Sunday's newspaper, they'd have to eat off a bare table.
Oh, God, to hell with them. Lucky to that and see it all.
The door to Peg's room, she paused and listened for a minute. Would she bother to tell her she had to go to her uncle's? And as she listened, she realised that Peg was asleep, made up her mind not to disturb the child.
That old cough seems to be settling deeper into her chest. Still, I think she was looking a little better this morning. The doctor says it's TB. I'm sure Sailor was right. There was never anything like that in our family. Good almighty, but that's a terrible thing altogether.
Brereton's, pawnbrokers and jewellers, looked down in black and gold fascia like a money changer in a temple of Christ's. And the minute price tags winking in the window from behind 100 wedding rings seemed to mock the wed and make of marriage a moneylender's Grand Prix.
5 shillings wedding ring and tissue paper, and the name is O'Brien. 1 and 6pence cutlery and books, and the name is Cannon.
A lady in the last stages of middle-class respectability confided to Mrs. Clancy that she was pawning for a friend, a sick friend. And both of them were agreed how it was a great coincidence that they both had friends in like circumstances. For a moment, Mrs. Clancy's accent took on what she regarded as a notable improvement, and she thought it a beastly pity that the poor children didn't have gordings to play in. And when the hub of the pawn made it impossible to hear what the other lady was saying, Mrs. Clancy begged her pardon.
If we could get a couple of streaky rashers now, maybe a sausage or 2, make a nice meal. Half nurse, that's the place for pork. Lovely white puddings too, yeah. A couple of streaky rashers from the bacon shops. Fry the bread and cut out the butter all together. I'll ask for 7 and 6, so we'll out for a cut.
8 shillings, gentleman's 3-piece suit in black, and the name is Driscoll.
On went the pleas, monotonous the verdict.
1 shilling iron and tongs, and the name is Sweetman.
Mrs. Clancy's bundle felt smaller than ever, and her financial aspirations fell from 7 and 6 to 5 to 3. Still in all, she knew what she had to get for the tea. There'd be no pork sausages and no streaky rashers.
Bacon bits, split loaf, and an ounce of tea in Healy's.
She knew now that the middle-class woman was a liar, and that the pawn shop was stuffy and overbearing. Sailor would probably wait till he was drunk before coming home with the wages, if he still had them.
8 shilling shoes in box, and the name is Kelly.
And it was clear that Peg couldn't have a bad cold. When any Egypt could see, she was dying rapidly from consumption. Her legs felt weak. And as she stood staring sightlessly in front of her, she remembered that it was yesterday since she had a meal of any sort.
What's the interest on that?
You want to redeem it?
Please.
I'm afraid that's gone.
My God, sure, it couldn't be gone. That watch was represented to my man the day he left Guinness's after 42 years. And a week before he died. Ah, look it. It says there on the ticket that anything over £2 lasts 12 months without selling.
Yes, ma'am, but the 12 months was up on Wednesday. Anyway, we'll have a try. Any sign of a gold watch and chain pawned by Teeves in February 12 months ago?
Gone.
Gone, ma'am. Sold in a lot of hard goods yesterday. Now, if you'd come before... Sorry, ma'am, it's your own fault. How much? Look, come on. I haven't got all day to waste.
5, John. 5 shillings, please.
Look, if you want to be funny, go on the stage. We don't have time for jokes here.
But it's only over until the morning. John, you know I have to come in for a suit in the morning. Oh, I'll be sick.
Not on a dozen of them. I'll give you $50 and I must be going soft. What's your name today? Mulligan. $50 for Mulligan on articles in paper.
As she waited for the ticket writer to sand her ticket and give her the £0.50 she'd wrung from the pawnbroker, Mrs. Clancy went over in her mind the errands that'd be so quickly done.
Bake me scraps, tuppence worth of fat pieces, and I could dip the bread. Sometimes he does give a bit of lean in them. Oh, sure, it's only for today, and anyhow, God is good.
Of her remaining 1 and 8 pence halfpenny, she'd allowed 3 for the gas, and when she'd paid the society man 1 shilling and 5 pence, her entire worldly wealth would be 1 halfpenny. Oh, the insurance was a must for Mrs. Clancy, for if the neighbours had had to take around a hat for her funeral, she'd have died 1,000 deaths. It was the halfpenny that was left over she was thinking about. It was silly, seemed to assume an importance far beyond its actual worth. She couldn't think what to buy with it. So, she decided to ignore it. Her mind felt easier now.
I'm damn sure it more to worry me than it hate me.
Ah, will ya look? Here's little Sailor Clancy, and the blood is pouring, simply pouring from his head. What's up, Mr. Clancy? Did you fall or were you pushed? Here comes Mr. Devoy. Maybe he'll know what's happened.
Oh, call him up if he's all in one piece, Lizzie.
Mr. Devoy! Mr. Devoy, can you come up to Mrs. English for a minute?
Oh, nothing like this ever happens on the deep, Giggles. Nothing like this. And I didn't even half finish me point.
Oh, try not to talk, Mr. Clancy. Always let the blood curdle until it clots. That way maybe you'll be able to keep your brains from going sour.
The minute I put my foot off at the boat at the north wall, I could see the flames shooting from Strand Street. Well, now, Sailor, says I to myself, you've had to go up there and see if your experience will be of any assistance to the firemen. Or we often have to fight for it at sea, you know, all the time, sometimes. And when I got up there to where the flames was coming from, all I could see was people running about, with rosary beads in the one hand and bicycle chains in the other. And they were throwing petrol on the flames, and the police standing there watching them.
Would that be the celebration, like, to mark the end of the Eucharistic Congress, then?
Oh, I don't know what it was. But there was this crowd of men marching along carrying banners, looking for work, being chased by a very religious-looking mob. Honest, it was God, Giggles. They were trying to throw the unemployed men into the flames.
Oh, religious fervour can get out of hand, all right. Sure, didn't the Pope himself say that only a couple of weeks ago, when that chap Mussolini and some of his followers shot a few people that didn't agree with?
Out of hand, is it? Never. In all me boarding days, never did I think that I'd be terrified of the tune Faith of Our Fathers.
A fine hymn, I always think.
Ah, but did you ever hear it to the accompaniment of lead piping and bicycle chains?
Yeah, we'd better get you upstairs, Mr. Sim. I know, easy. Up you go. I'm mind the turning at the top, but the rail has gone all rickety right now.
Sailor couldn't know that he'd been caught up in a row between General Owen O'Duffy, Commissioner of Police, and Mr. De Valera's government. De Valera was soft, and communist influences were not being contended with. It was necessary to have a firm hand at the helm, and that was why O'Duffy had formed his own party, which was called the National Guard. And to protect it from secret armies, he founded his own secret army. It was called the White Army. As for God help poor Sailor, how could he know that the men with the bicycle chains and the lead piping were the advance guard of General O'Duffy's bright new Aryan troops?
And General Duffy told the government that they have the black shirts in Italy and the brown shirts in Germany, and we got rid of the blue shirts here in Ireland.
Well, that's clear fighting talk from the head of the police, ma'am. A real Irish way of keeping the peace.
Larry, come up to your dinner soon. Come on up before it's cold.
Ain't good for it, ma.
Only a bit of salmon. This is Friday. It's a fast day soon. Tell me, Ma, when I go home, the boys won't leave the girls alone. They pull me hair, toss me comb, but that's all right till I go home. She is handsome, she is pretty, she is the belle of Dublin City. She has lovers, 1, 2, 3. Pray now tell me who they be. She is handsome, she is pretty, she is the belle of Dublin City. She has lovers, 1, 2, 3. Pray now tell me who they be.
Throughout 1932, the political character of the IRA had undergone fundamental change. In fact, there were now 3 IRAs. One led by Mr. Cosgrave, and known politically as Conmee. Another, which was now in power under Mr. De Valera, and known as Fianna Fáil, or the Soldiers of Destiny. And a third, whom Dev and Willie wanted to prevent getting into power, known simply as the IRA.
I cut the worm in half one day and later in 2 quarters. But imagine to my great dismay, it was still alive, no shot him.
IRA men like Padder O'Donnell, Frank Ryan and George Gilmore were taking republicanism out of its narrow nationalist mould and casting it as a philosophy to do with human beings. Speaking at a public meeting in Sackville Place, Frank Ryan quoted the celebrated remark of James Connolly's, "Ireland, distinct from her people, means nothing to me." And from that time on, the IRA's face was completely changed. It wasn't a face that appealed to everybody, least of all Mr. De Valera, but he had to put up with the change because he was still talking to the IRA and he depended on left-wing votes to keep his party in power. The irony of the situation was not lost on the fascist leader, General O'Duffy.
I can tell these weaklings in Dáil that the White Army, the Blue Shirts of Ireland, will have a dictatorship in Ireland if a dictatorship is necessary to rid the country of foreign and pernicious influences. It would be better than their so-called democratic government, run by foreigners and Jews.
It was not the first time that Mr. De Valera's antecedents had been misrepresented, and across the floor of Dáil he rebuffed the Blue Shirts leader.
There is not, as far as I know, a single drop of Jewish blood in my veins. I say that I have been known to be Irish and that I have given everything in me to the Irish nation.
And Bob Briscoe, Irish Republican Army veteran of the War of Independence and of the Jewish faith, didn't know whether to cheer or throw stones at his leader. Briscoe told a brother of mine years later that when he was disclaiming Jewish blood, De Valera did not want that to be intended as an attack on the Jews. But history might be better served if politicians said in public what they say they mean in private. However, Dev decided that a cleft stick was no place for him to be. So, in the spring of 1933, he called a general election. His party was returned to power with a majority of 1, so he didn't need to bend on the support of anybody, only himself. In 1933, people thought that Mussolini was a form of greeting. And Da swore that he heard 2 people with pledge pins in their coats saying as they were taking their leave of each other, "Mussolini to you." But then how could you be sure whether Da was serious or joking?
The Holy Father seems to think a lot of them then.
The Pope? Because he speaks well of Mussolini, you think that's a recommendation for fascism?
Well, I know that fascism must be wrong, Frank, because Frank Ryan says so and Father O'Flanagan is against it. But it can't be all bad if the Pope is in favour of it.
The Pope never opened his mouth about unemployment in Italy, and he doesn't like trade unions to strike for better conditions. Does that make strikes wrong and trade unionism bad?
They're not not going to set yourself up as a judge of the Pope, surely.
Why not? He sets himself up as a judge of me and mine. He's never done interfering in the politics of others.
Frank, the children. It's Christ's vicar on earth you talk of.
Ah, for God's sake, Kathleen, the Pope gave Ireland to the English King Henry in 1177. Country never even bloody well saw in his life.
That was a different Pope.
Different man, but the same Pope. All popes is the same Pope.
Oh, a body can't ask a simple question. But when you've a drop taken, it turns into a scurrilous attack on a person's beliefs.
But if a man was sober, Kathleen, he'd never put up with you. If the Lord God himself was married to you, he'd be glad to get back to his crucifix.
Frank Behan, keep that blasphemy for your low friends in the pub.
I can do that, me old
Well,
flower.
do it then.
I'm going out. But not because I want to.
Oh, that man.
He wasn't really angry, was he, Ma?
Angry? Your da. He's never been angry with anyone but himself as long as I've known him. That was his excuse for getting back to the pub.
Do you know what it is, Mrs. Clancy, that I'm going to tell you?
Well, I can't say no, Ma'am, as I do. And if I said I did, I'd be telling a lie.
Mrs. Half-a-Rasher Kenny leaned back in her seat and, satisfied that everyone was listening, went on in a loud voice.
Well, if I wasn't known, for one, as always minds her own business, I could say a thing or two about them that does be letting on to be without the cross of Christ and their children down in the basement and up in the bedroom, baiting each other with the best of half an hour's pork sausages.
Good to God!
As true as God's me judge, ma'am, not 10 minutes ago. From the babby in the pram up to the big fella with the black hair. The very one, ma'am. And as I used to say to my poor fella before he ran off with you... Oh, the bastard!
Don't be putting yourself out, Mrs. Look, after all, you had the best of him.
I did that, ma'am. I laid on him, you might say.
Yeah. Stop it,
Anyway, as I used to say to my poor fella before he ran off with you-know-who, the hand of God will punish those as waste his food.
God, I can't hardly believe it. I hope the sausages was fried, ma'am.
Fried or unfried makes no difference, ma'am. It's not right or proper the children the likes of that should be living off the fat of the land while others are existing on tea and bread. And wait till I tell you what else.
You're not serious.
Well, have you ever seen him get up for church, chapel, or meeting house?
God, come to think of it, you could be right. But to tell the truth and shame the devil, I never gave him much thought before.
And that's where it begins, ma'am. Think of the danger to the children. Though it doesn't surprise me. When you see them coming home from that shell of a man library with them big, thick books with the hard covers under their arms, it's as clear as mud they'll go the way of the father.
Ah, so don't be talking, Mrs. Should that fella Brenda was up with me when the mother was in the hospital with the last baby. What was his name? Camel. Yeah, Camel, that's the one. Anyway, I was saying to him, I was asking him, was he pleased that the stock was bringing a new baby to the house, Well, let's go, Mrs. I got the shock of my life, and he turned to me and says, hey, Mrs. Clancy, says he, will that be before me ma gets out of the maternity hospital or after? God, I didn't know where to put me face.
Oh, it's the books, ma'am. The books. Sure, no children should be able to use words bigger than their elders.
Oh, you could be right there, Mrs., because I was in that house once and I seen a book there. The devil's this... Look, do you know that word for apostles? You know the one that real Catholics use?
Oh, there you have it, ma'am. Real Catholics, like me and you.
Actually, there's not one of them but's mad Irish. Now, God, I'm proud of me country, Mrs.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt you, miss.
Which there's so much takes pride in the fair altogether. She's only last week, two of them got my poor John and hung him from the line in the backyard, upside down. He swore to renounce the king and all his walks and pomps.
And the mother boasting that they're the best-behaved children in the street. Oh, best-behaved, how are you?
Sure, God give Kathleen Behan sense. What about that Seamus fella painting poor Nanny Dolan's windows with black paint? The poor old creature couldn't tell the difference between night and day.
Oh, God forgive me for laughing, ma'am. But I believe she didn't go out for nearly 3 days.
But look at this. The child is in the red. What about Mrs. Conliffe? Coming in to say that her Tommy had got a punch from Sean. Oh, Mrs. Conliffe's the big one. Oh, Mrs. Conliffe, wait till I lay me hands on him. I laid him a parable. Well, I declare to God she was hardly out the door, but the other one turned to me and she said, did you hear it, Mrs. Clancy? Did you hear her? Beat Sean. I'd no more lay hands on one of my angels. The world had beat them enough.
The hypocrisy of it, ma'am. Little angels, how are you? Demons, ma'am. Demons straight from hell.
Oh, no.
Hey, Jimmy! Jimmy Gilly, ever going to serve the ready money customers?
All right, all right.
Same again, Mrs. C.
But no, I will. I've something similar.
Evening, ladies.
Oh, talk of the devil. I mean, Mrs. Clancy here just talking about you. Mr. Behan, ma'am.
Oh, a sight for sore eyes and a tonic for the lonely.
And I hope it was all good, ma'am.
Good, Mr. Behan.
You said you were talking about me before I came in. Jimmy, point a plane and see what the ladies are having.
Oh, no, Mr. Behan, no more for me. Oh, you're more the one, and I'm ready to sing the heart of no man's land.
And a decent old song in the right place, ma'am. Give the ladies a couple of balls of malt, Jimmy.
Oh, God, you're awful, Frank. We'll be on our rear. Well, it only goes to bear as what we were saying before you came in. There's not one of the landlady's bread but his heart's a corn.
Oh, now you could sing that if you had a nature with the heart of the round, the heart of the God. Holy God. Oh, how you men can take a lass of this stuff beats me.
Do you good, ma'am?
I'd never take more than a drop myself.
Drop is right.
Aye, in the end of a bucket. Evening, Frank.
Well, if it isn't me old college mate. How are you, Harry? How are you at all?
Yeah, fair to middling, Frank, fair to middling. Yourself?
Better than when I last saw you. Jimmy, what do you have?
Not for me. I'm on business.
Ah, no, Harry, not the sort of business that people do in whispers. We're getting a bit old for that, chum.
A man's never too old to do what he knows is right, Frank. A man learns that with time.
I had 3 years in Conmee in prison to learn it, Harry. And all I felt every day was a day older. Men should have politics. It's up to you to fight for them.
We want as many members of the Dublin battalion on the streets tomorrow as possible.
And the best of luck to you, Harry. But I'm one of the few people in Dublin with a job, and I don't intend to lose it by getting either shot or locked up.
So we're going to hide behind jobs while O'Duffy and his blue shirts take over the whole bloody country.
Rubbish, Harry, rubbish. What can O'Duffy and his holy legions do? Stab us to death with our pledge pins? Strangle us with our rosary beads? This is Dublin, not Rome or Berlin.
O'Duffy has issued mobilisation orders that'll bring every lumpen proletariat, every middle-class git and every farmer for miles around into this city tomorrow.
Tomorrow's Sunday. You don't think they'd risk Martin saying by killing on the Sabbath?
They're marching on the city tomorrow night.
Then let's have a Lear stop them. He's a bloody big official army now.
You don't think the Free State Army's going to stand up against the blue shirts?
Why not? They're the defence forces of the country.
They were set up by the blue shirts. Or at least by the leaders of the blue shirts.
Well, in that case... Ah, no, Harry, not with De Valera in charge. If that fella issues an order prescribing the IRA and jails a lot of us... Oh, no. One thing being in jail under the British, but under your former comrades, they would throw the bloody key away.
Then you won't mobilise?
Well, no, I didn't say
then
that.
I'll see you at 4:30 at Temple Oak Bridge tomorrow.
What was it you rapidly setting the way to the horizon? I've helped wind the clock. I might as well be there when the alarm goes off.
Slodge you, Frank.
Hardly the white road, Harry. Good night to you.
A school teacher, Frank.
Here is, ma'am.
The friend of the trench coat.
An insurance man, I said.
Oh, some responsible job anyhow.
What made you say that, ma'am?
Well, we didn't have his trousers in his stockings.
His trousers in his what?
Them was bicycle clips he was wearing.
Sign of position, I always say.
Oh, indeed, ma'am. Man of extreme function.
On Friday, 18th of August 1934, Owen O'Duffy, the commander of the blue shirt so-called White Army, declared that party politics had outlived their usefulness, and advocating a corporate state like Mussolini's, announced plans for a mass demonstration. The rally was to take place on Sunday the 20th of August, and it would ostensibly be a parade to commemorate the triple anniversaries of Arthur Griffiths, Michael Collins and Kevin O'Higgins. Well, De Valera banned the parade, but on the outskirts of the city, the farmers, together with their friends from Mr. Cosgrave's Cumming and Isle party, along with members of the Centre Party who had won 11 seats in the 1933 election, stood around in groups, their trench coats lapping over their blue shorts. Members of the Dublin units of the IRA, together with comrades from Cork, Kerry, Galway, Waterford and Belfast, formed a human wall between the fascists and the city, while Dublin itself was patrolled by the government troops. Well, O'Duffy's promise to march on the city came to nothing. The farmers went off back to the land, and O'Duffy himself went home to await the call. Meeting in the aftermath of the blue shirts threat, De Valera and his ministers invoked the Public Safeties Act and banned the blue shirts. And then 3 months later, he issued orders to his police to go out and arrest the leaders of the IRA.
F-I I shall plant a tiny seed of love in the garden of your heart. Would it grow to be a great big love one day? Or would it die and fade away? Would you care for it and tend it every day till the time when I must part? If I should plant a tiny seed of love in the garden of your heart.
But people, ordinary people, had more to worry them than shorts, whether they be blue, green, or even bloody red. People worried about the things that people should worry about. Going to your job if you had one to go to, and getting a job if you hadn't. Of course, if a body didn't have to worry about where our next meal was coming from, then maybe there were other things. Take, for instance, Mrs. Redden. From wall to wall, the floor of Mrs. Redden's front room was covered in a perfectly fitting carpet, which was laid on a multicoloured botanical linoleum. It was Mrs. Redden's practice every week to take her furniture out into the hall, lift the carpet, clean it out in the backyard, and while it was airing, to polish the floor. Most people thought that she was carrying cleanliness beyond a joke, but then Mrs. Redden thought little of what other people thought.
They like to be warm in their dirt, John, but I always like to make sure that none of them old crawly things that comes from their rooms comes into mine.
Oh, stop taking time in Redden's Emperorarium once again.
Has that one any idea how many places a person can put their arse at the one time?
To see the carpet out again.
I wouldn't have one of them things in the place. They breed lice and bugs and all sorts of things. My husband says they've the same complaints as animals.
God, the worst is you can't hear yourself walk. I like to hear myself walk.
The sight of me new gramophone will turn them one's grievous envy. I put on boots and saddles. This instant, you don't own the bloody ratings. Now, if I go out to your piggy-con lip, I'll soon let you know whether I own them or not. And as for you, Seamus Behan, I'll go down to your mother about you if you don't clear off.
I didn't know none on you, Mrs. Redden.
Go, Seamus, old crook.
On the trail of buffalo.
Little bastard. Oh, crook. That's my husband now, and that's what they call him behind his back. Ah, why couldn't you go down with the lane anyway, instead of displaying that hump of his the length and breadth of Russell Street? And Miss Little Ink. God forgive me. Trying to be friendly to people, but only laughter at his broken spine behind his back. Now he's past the time of day that he can survive, and the name of God is not ashamed of himself. You'd never imagine he had a daughter who had to live out the whole of her life here. And even when she's married, the neighbours will always remember her as the daughter of old Crook. I bet they think his hump is hereditary. Oh, little do they know. If they'd have seen you, John, the straightest limbed man that ever drew the breath of life, the God, the men of his family parade had to watch their wives when you were alive. Ah, John, waiting you a man and a half? And what in the name of God did I do that you had to leave me with old Crook?
Her eyes travelled to the mantel shelf and fixed upon the wedding print showing two shining faces snapped against a nearly tropical background.
That was the first time I ever rode in a taxi. Oh, I'd seen them all right, but they used to come down across the bridge to the respectable houses in Jones's Road. And they don't do that now, John. Money's not there nowadays. They're as poor as church mice. And the taxi took us from St. Peter's and Fisborough down to Lafayette's. The 40 people in Westmoreland Street. Do you remember how embarrassed you were when the taxi man asked, will I put up the board, John? And you then can have to keep in a warm bed for them hussies of Monto. But it made me feel good, because it sort of made things even for what happened to me in Blackpool the year you took me to see the lights.
This is English, ma'am.
Well, what about Mrs. English?
Give me a message for you. It's about your furniture. She says you're to take it off at the common thoroughfare before someone breaks a leg or a neck. She says she's not insured against that kind of thing.
And I suppose you and that other gobbo nut Kenny had it all to tell her.
Sure, I've only...
I'll have you sorry, go home behind me.
That Redden one has more furniture in a room than there is in a chain of Pickford vans.
Her room must be like living in a chapel. A Protestant one, loads of statues, and no congregation to admire them.
Ah, she's rather 6 foot and knows it.
True, ma'am, true. She must be nearly as old as you or me.
Excuse yourself, Lizzie McHugh. She may be the one age with you, but she could give me a good few years.
I dare say you're right, ma'am. Still, it doesn't account for her love of possessions.
Always showing off. Sure, even for her honeymoon, didn't she want to go to Rome?
Rome is right. Rome around 2 rooms and in a spanning parade. Oh, your mother's idea that was. After the wedding, when we didn't even have the tram fare to Fairview, she still insisted you'll have to let the neighbours think you're honeymooning in Rome. Well, you forget them 2 weeks and them 2 rooms and in a spanning parade, John. With your mother smuggling in food and drink and reading imaginary letters from the Vatican to the neighbours. And the first week was grand, but then I learned her made it tick, and I tell you this, John, that when a body solves a mystery that clothes make of a male body, I began to pray to God the last days of that honeymoon to go quickly. Do you remember you looked at me face and you burst out laughing, and says you, Jesus, what will the neighbours say to the 2 pale faces that are supposed to spend a fortnight under the Mediterranean? And I never forget the night how Morgan looked up and seen the 2 of us sitting half naked on top of the outhouse. Lord, the heat of that night, and the heat of the whole of them 2 weeks. Never was better weather. And to waste a whole fortnight. Well, a week anyway. No wonder I was pregnant when the honeymoon was over. Started much else to do. And they never knew. The neighbours had no idea.
I don't quite follow you, messes. They never went.
Spent the whole 2 weeks at his mother's place at Innisfallen Parade.
But we saw them coming back from the station, and the marks of the continent all over their bands.
Ah, sure didn't his old one tell all about it to Frank, sneaking out in the middle of the last night to Westland Row Station with 2 empty suitcases and stamped all over with Italian labels that they'd bought in Clary's of Sackville Street.
But I remember them getting out of the taxi.
Ah, yes. Did you see the Pope? Did you bring back his blessing?
But you asked them if they'd kissed the Holy Father's foot.
Ah, kiss me arse, Lizzie McHugh. Do you think I'm stupid to fall for an old trick like that?
And of course, your mother had to tell everybody that we had a lot of holy relics that were being sent on from Rome the next week. So the best part of your first week's wages was spent buying medals and things from the Catholic repository in Granby Lane. And everybody prayed from the Pope blessed mementos of 2 weeks on the continent of 24 in the Spalin Parade. You never know where them thieving bowsies do be, because the one-eyed man is not king in this valley of the Blind, for it takes 2 of them to mind each other.
She glanced across her possessions just to make sure everything was as she'd left it.
Oh, Crook thinks this is a terrible way to furnish a room. Says we can afford to give some away to our needy neighbours. Not they'd give me, I said. And so see, it's only because they've nothing to be generous with love. God, that's a right lame excuse. There's one thing putting up with your ideas of plain wallpaper and quiet furniture. And what was it you called the painting? Yeah, tasteful decor. Well, didn't mind you having your little ways, but that old Crook, does he think he's in the same league as you, John? Who is it pays the rent and keeps a roof over our heads and pays for Dolly's music? Is it him with a stopgap pension of 18 shillings a week? Or me that's a standard Marcus down in Mersey, wherever the weather, wherever the time? And even when I have a morning off, I have to make sure the place is tidy. Where's that humpy back deck gotcha? Are you going to stand out there all day, gossiping your life away to the idle alone in the street? Come in here, Crook, and move the furniture. God almighty, John, would you left me with a white burden?
Did you want me, love?
Not if the waste of the street needs it to lean on.
Mr. Devoy is not a waster. He was out of work, that's all. Now he has a job again.
A job? Giggity Boy has a job. Oh, well, God bless us and save us. And there was I thinking that miracles were on the eye.
And there's another thing.
Yes.
You're the only person in the whole street that calls me crook.
To your face.
To me face. I want you just to show me the same courtesy as strangers do and call me by me name.
You want me to call you John Redden?
It's what I was christened.
Well, there's only one John Redden in this room, and he's up there in that picture on the wall.
You got a what, Giggles?
A job, Mrs. English.
A job? Is a testing beds, you are.
No, it's out on the new house. It's out in Cabra. All the fellas on the street got them this morning.
1935 will be remembered by Dubliners as the year the building trade went to work. Second only to agriculture, the building industry had been at a low ebb for about 30 years, until the government decided to rehouse the slum dwellers. The first scheme of workers' cottages, as they were called, was inaugurated at Marino, followed quickly by Oak Park, and now Cabra. And soon they'd be building out as far as Kimmage, Crumlin and Drimnagh. At this point, however, the workers of Russell Street didn't have to go much further than Doyles's Corner to breathe in the unpolluted air of the mysterious countryside.
Tell me, Ma, when I go home, the boys won't leave the girls alone. They pull me hair, toss me comb, but that's all right till I go home. She is handsome, she is pretty, she is the belle of Dublin City. She has lovers, 1, 2, 3. Pray now tell me who they be. She is handsome, she is pretty, she is the belle of Dublin City. She has lovers, 1, 2, 3. Pray now tell me who they be.
1936. 1936 was a great year for building workers and Protestant school children. To get a job in a building site just then, a man had only to muster up enough strength to clock in and pick up his wages. Well, so they said. Protestant school children were having a high old time of it too, because their king, George V, upped and died on January the 20th. And now the lucky little loyalists were getting 3 days off to make merry. Outside, you could hear them singing their tune from the safety of Jones's Road Bridge as we made our way to our daily punishment.
No more sums, no more swords and a poor old gums. No more Irish, no more French, no more sitting on a hard out bench. No more English, no more sums, no more swords and a poor old
It was enough to subvert any decent rebel. I mean, here was Dan, all his friends, giving up their lives and going to jail for freedom. And the little monarchists had far more liberty than we could even dream of. In May of the previous year, they got 3 days off for the silver jubilee of their king. Now they get 3 more days off for the coronation of the Prince of Wales, and with any luck from the Black Church, the new king would probably fall off of a horse and give him 3 more days. On the other hand, our crowd usually lived forever, or got shot. And if the latter happened, a Catholic kid was expected to march the feet off himself behind a tricolour, or go on hunger strike. If I hadn't been terrified of me Granny Furlong, I'd have prayed for the king as long as me knees lasted. Oh, Granny Furlong wasn't really my granny. She was Sean and Rory's granny. And she lived with Aunt Evelyn and Emily, and they called her Mammy.
Come into the garden road, for the black bat night has flown. Come into the garden road. I am here at the gate alone. I am here at the gate alone.
Beautiful, Fergus, beautiful, a lovely rendition.
Ah, the voice, Mrs. Furlong. It's not what it was, I'm afraid.
Ah, but the expression is still wonderful, Fergus. Isn't that so, Kathleen?
Oh, indeed, Mrs. Furlong.
Who's taking the photo, Granny?
You don't know who that man is, child? Kathleen, I am surprised. Brendan could tell you. Can't you, Brendan?
Father Griffin.
Oh, just a priest.
Not just a priest. Was he, Brendan?
The Black and Tans murdered him and dumped his body in a bog.
Why?
Because he was a Republican, that's why.
The Protestant kids got 3 days off for the death of the king.
For the death of whom?
The king.
The king of where, child?
The king of England, Granny.
That's right, son. Never forget he's no king of yours.
Dominic, I think now that we're on the verge of unity, the whole question of anti-English feeling will greatly subside.
Verge of unity? Is that what you think, Kathleen?
Dev seems to be living up to his promises anyway. Well, he is clearing the slums, and by the same token putting the country to work.
Oh, Kathleen, how can you say a thing like that? De Valera is the biggest traitor to the Republic since Tim Healy took the job of Governor-General.
I never thought I'd hear you say that about Dev, Mrs. Furlong.
I have it straight from Sean Russell himself.
I suppose Russell should know.
Emily, quiet, please. About 18 months ago, De Valera asked Sean to come to Leinster House to discuss the future of the IRA. And De Valera said that of all the problems he had confronting the government, the land annuities, economic war, the blue shirts...
Well, now, that's one thing Dev did. Beat the blue shirts.
I mean, the IRA beat the blue shirts, Kathleen. Anyway, De Valera said that the only problem that seemed insoluble was the IRA. And you know what De Valera suggested?
I couldn't say, I'm sure.
He wanted the IRA to give up its arms. But Russell reminded De Valera that it was on his own order that we had retained our arms for the next defence of the Republic.
I didn't know that.
Indeed, I was in the room at the time. Sitting with Maud Gunn, I was. De Valera didn't deny it, though. He turned to Russell and told him, I admit, Sean, that I left you that legacy, but at least cease drilling and parading with arms in public.
And Russell refused, I suppose?
No. He was prepared to show his sincerity if De Valera demonstrated something of a like feeling on his part. Debbie told him, put the issue of the Republic before the people at the next general election or declare the Republic within a reasonable time.
And what was Dev's reply?
He asked what Russell thought was a reasonable time. And when Russell told him and said 5 years, De Valera broke off the talks. And shortly after, he put a price on Russell's head.
Oh, that's really disgraceful.
The only difference between De Valera and Judas is that De Valera is taller.
Come back up here, Stephen Murphy, and get yourself ready for school, or we jays I leave you crippled.
The nuns will have me for not having any money for the black babies.
Black babies? Then just tell that nun we haven't enough food for the white ones.
Ma, if you let me stay at home and go to the farm fair and do all the other messages. Come on, Ma, please. Jesus, will you listen to that little fella talking about the poor in front of the house, please? Come up here, you common little bastards.
Ah, should they make a show of you, missus? Even if you had the makings of a saint or the patience of Job.
At 8:30, every morning but one, the street will be filled with crying, ill-tempered children. Well, not this morning. Friday was different. A day of hope, a day of satisfaction. Payday, if your father was working.
Oi, children! Pay attention to your teacher now.
Did you hear Dad last night? No, was he drunk, was he? How could he be drunk on a Thursday, in a temper? Oh, no, what? I don't know, I couldn't hear. Then how did you know I was fine?
Seamus, Brian, get along to school before the bell.
No, was bad. You're as thick as bricks. You're a bit of an ease, I think. Say I thought. Supposing 3 more frozen. One died. How many's left? None, because you're all supposing. Thought you catch me out there. Wait for me.
16 grams.
1 ounce, 16 ounces, 1 pound, 40 pounds, 1 stone, 8 stone, 100.
The River Shannon.
Flows to Limerick.
The River Liffey.
Flows to Dublin.
The River Lee.
Flows to Cork.
The River Corrib.
Flows to Galway.
The River Foyle.
Flows to Derry.
The River Lagan.
Flows to Belfast.
The River Boyne.
Flows to Drogheda.
The River Suir.
Flows to Waterford.
Rinna. Curry.
Holy God, we praise thy name. Lord of all, we praise
raced like lunatics for home. Oh, not for our houses. It was the street we wanted. That teeming society where nothing belonging to a fellow was strange. We knew the holes in each other's socks, as well as our mothers who had attacked them in vain with a darning needle. At the canal bridge over our end of the street, there'd be life. Something would be happening. Might be a couple of neighbours having a row, or a drunk getting fished out of the water, or a ball might get kicked into the river. Whatever it be, there'd be life. No one could stop it, for Russell Street just came straight up and slapped you smack in the face.
There we go, Mrs.
Wings and bits!
That's enough about Ray Tail, Mrs. Good smoke came from there.
All the good ones came from you. That's why Rings End is full of rounds and bowsies.
Hold on there now, Mum. I might have something that'd suit ya. All right, you mean a sewer, I always say.
Don't you be boasting, you're actually screen cleaning. Airs and graces don't suit your like.
Ah, pay no attention to her, missus. Sure didn't her people turn Protestant for suit Jordan the famine. Hey, son, what's up with the canal?
The sky, missus!
Ah, you everything little bastard, Jack. Hey, mister, what's up with the canal, huh? Hey, you in the doctor's coat, what's up with the canal? Oh, Jesus, yes, are a very polite lot, no mistake. Hey, miss, do you know what happened?
The man fell in the water, Nelly.
Oh, jeez, protected from becoming cripples. Is he drowned?
Oh, drowned it, ma'am.
Ah, sure, maybe he's better off, love. They say drowned men hear bells and singing.
Jesus, that's it! Never a policeman round here where he's wanted. Ah, but if my poor fellow was coming home drunk, I know the foot that kicked that ball through me window.
Look at here, Charlie Mac. If you want to play a league, you'll stand alive. You, Brian Bean, turn out back as the game's broke up.
And look, he's round. He's got one hand off his eye.
All in, the game is broke up. All over Brian Bean. He's going to keep it out again.
We played pussy four corners and we won't let him in.
I don't want to play. And you, Charlie Mac, don't come into our house no more, because you won't be let in, so you won't.
No one wants to be let into your old house, save the crumbs.
Your was a lavatory cleaner. Your old fella's terrible mean. They sit in the pub drinking porter. Your man's washing never is clean.
Oh, God help you, Brian. What you crying for, son?
They won't let him play the game, he's classy. And Charlie Mac is singing dirty songs of every man there.
Oh, no, that's not nice, Charlie. Go on, let him in the game. That's a good boy.
But he keeps on breaking it up, Mum.
Well, he won't break it up no more. She won't, Brian. Go on now. That's good children now.
That's for lads. The lovin's for lads.
Aye. Would you like a nice big ballon, sonny?
Yeah.
You would? Yeah, well, you go and get some rags, and I'll give you one on a stick.
Just rags.
That's for rags.
Mr. Ragman. Hey, Mr. Ragman. If I come down when you throw me on your cards as I am. Hey, Nelly. Nelly, can you hear me over there? Could you look at your fancy man where his rubber balloon?
The short y'all think were his English habits.
Hey, Johnny Clancy, where the name of Jesus are you going with me best shot? Hey, sailor, will you take me short off of Johnny? Dear God, missus, they're making a pair of boots for that young fella out in our town. Cold blocks! Cold blocks! A penny apiece, they're cold blocks! Here, you little bastard! Take that straw away from me pony's hair! Stop him, mister! Get him before he goes into something now! Look at our cold blocks all over the place. Oh, it's a crying shame. That's what it is still. It's no use wasting God's blessings. Hey, Johnny, grab a few of them cold blocks before she gets back. Oh, God. He's taking up for the poorest missus. Take off your coat, Jean, and grab the cold blocks in her.
children that are going now. And that Seamus Behan, I declare to God, he'd rob anything that wasn't nailed down. Ah, Mrs. Caddle, did you get your pony back? And did they rob your bollocks? Honest to God, it's a terrible street. You couldn't leave that near your hand still. You got your cart back anyway. Oh, here's your fella coming round the north circle, Mum.
Oh, Jesus, so it is. I'm not a child in the house washed. Better go in and put the pan on. Thank God it's Friday. They never expect much.
Here's my fella as well. I suppose I better go and heat up that stew we had yesterday.
It's a fast day, Mum. You can't give him stew.
Oh, not for my fella. He says there's only 3 fast days in a lifetime. The day you can't eat it, the day you haven't got it, and the day you can't get it.
Now the wage earners are returning from work. Featherweights on pavements of foam rubber. Coal heavers with clean black faces and big #1 shovels over their shoulders. Leather-coloured building workers, fat, jolly little men from the Mountjoy Brewery. Broad-grinned dockers and tight-lipped, pale-faced shop assistants, laughing and joking and jostling each other as they turn into the street and throw pennies to the waiting children. Millionaires for an evening, for an hour, for a minute. Oh, and tonight, the long procession to the fish and chip shop. 2 1-on-1s, Mr. Zavallo, and plenty of salt and vinegar. And on the way home, make sure you steal the chips from both ends of the newspapered parcel so as no one will notice. And then stick the whole lot up under your jumper so you feel your chest roasting in one spot. Friday for the people, for the publicans, for the insurance man, and for the money lender. Friday for the shopkeepers, for the wives, for the widows with big sons and the big sons with widows. Friday's for the kids. Oh, and above all, Friday to pay back a little of what they owe so they can borrow again on Monday. And Friday for the landlady, as she sits with a clear view of who's home with the wages and who's not. For if one of them gets as far as the pub, it's good night, Joe Doyle. Maybe Mrs. English mightn't mind waiting for the rent till next week.
Ah, sure, what else can I do but wait when they haven't got it, Lizzie?
Sure, ma'am, true. The world is sore for the want of a few shillings.
Oh, that's as may be. But I've yet to see the publican with the arse out of his trousers all the same. And I've a lot to do with me money, Lizzie. That fellow will be here with his bill from the Prudential. And I'll have to be giving him nearly £3. Arrears, you know.
Mrs. McHugh did know. She was fully aware that the landlady had the life of every tenant well backed. And Granny knew she knew. They both knew. Which was something everybody in the street knew. But a neighbour's business must be discussed behind a neighbour's back. And only praise is for overhearing. Because of the rehousing policy, 1936 was a strange year. Unemployment was lower than it had been for some time. There was not full employment, nothing like it. But people were finding it easier to get jobs. There wasn't even much point going to England anymore. That was something now reserved for countrymen. In the pubs, people were remarking that De Valera mightn't be the chance that they'd taken him for. But as for asking the children to speak their Irish language...
Mar, ta, Gaeilge. In a few years, everybody be talking it.
Here's one sure 5 that won't.
What is that, Mr. Clancy?
Well, that's not what a man could call the normal language, is it?
What do you mean, normal?
Well, I suppose he means you couldn't order a stone of coal in it.
You could if you understood it.
Then you'd have to find someone who could understand you.
Wouldn't it be a grand thing for a person to be able to go to the continent, for example, and to be able to say to a Frenchman or an Italian that you wouldn't be able to understand them in Irish?
Ah, no. Don't tell me you're going to bring French or Italian into the argument, Mr. Devoy.
And why not?
Well, isn't it bad enough for us to be ignorant in the one language without making fools of ourselves altogether?
Take it from me, Giggles, it'll never catch on. And even if the Irish do pick it up, it'll be only themselves that know what it's all about. I know. I've been all over the globe. Glasgow, Liverpool, you name it, I've been there.
But the people in the rest of the world has to listen to it every month. Mr. De Valera, as president of the League of Nations, opens every meeting in it. Mr. Gill, what is it Mr. De Valera says to the League of Nations?
A cordial air. There you are. What did I tell you?
What do you mean, there you are?
Did you understand whatever it was Mr. Gill was talking about?
No, I didn't. What do you mean?
And even the fellas in the League of Nations wouldn't do that either. But it doesn't matter, because they're all partners to each other anyway.
On June the 20th, 1936, the IRA defied a government ban on the demonstration at Bodenstown and paraded in their thousands to the graveside of Wolfe Tone. Present was a delegation from the newly elected Spanish Republican government, and they swore to re-establish the old alliance that had left Irishmen waiting at the Bay of Killala and Ballynahincha for a history of bloody years. And then on the 13th of July, a new hero made his way into the hearts of Catholic Ireland. A man who was going to preserve the faith as staunchly as had Dan the Liberator O'Connell himself. This man's name was Francisco Franco, and he was a Spanish general.
My fella says that they're burning chapels, murdering priests and raping nuns. And it must be right, for he got it off a fella who's a friend of a man that owns a newspaper shop.
And Stephen Behan supports them.
Sure, isn't that the twisted nature of the man? He never went with the way the street thought. Remember poor Joe Cardle? Mrs. Cardle's husband that was. And the time Stephen Behan and his friends wrote on the wall, Joe Cardle is an informer.
Oh, I didn't know anything about that, missus.
No, sure, that was in the 20s. I don't think you and your husband was in the street then.
No, clicking we were there, missus. Me trying to get away from me father because he drank us so good.
Anyway, a lot of us saw the sign, and we started to think. So that's why Johnny got 6 months for the lead. Or that's why a decent man can steal nothing without getting caught. Oh, Jesus, they half killed poor Joe Cardle.
But I suppose then the fellas explain matters to him.
Well, they'd have had a hard job, ma'am. Should they riddled him? Simply riddled him.
With bullets, missus?
Something suspiciously like it, ma'am.
God, and the poor man never told on them at all.
Sure, how could he? Innocent, ma'am. Innocent as a newborn babe. Ah, well. Sure, that's life.
God, well, just let him try saying one word against Genital Frankie while I'm conscious.
Is it him say it, ma'am? Sure, even the young one in the pram is wearing a big red rose saying, support Republican Spain. Sure, that child to be red stone mad before she's old enough to have sense.
A rift was widening chasm-like in the ranks of the IRA. People like me Granny Furlong took the same view as Sean Russell. They were sorry for the young Spanish Republic, but the IRA didn't have the men to spare, or the arms.
It just cannot be done, Frank. What happens if we send men to Spain? What happens to the movement here at home, I mean?
Oh, Duffy is sending men to fight for Franco. The Germans and Italians are sending planes to bomb the people of Spain. Now, if the IRA is really a Republican movement and not just a nationalist club, then they too should realise the significance of defending a fellow republic.
We have neither the men nor the arms, Frank, and that's that.
I'm going.
You going? Where are you going?
To Spain.
Should have wished his father to the deed.
I am going. I believe it am, and no parish priest is going to stop me. I'm just waiting for me papers, then I'm out to fight bloody Franco.
What the blazes was all that about?
It's true. He volunteered.
At 13, a bloody baby.
He told them he was 17. His papers arrived this morning. I burned them.
Well, thanks be to God, somebody had some sense.
Many Irish Republicans went out to fight Franco, never returned. Paddy McDara died at Jarama, leading the British battalion of the International Brigade. And Frank Ryan was taken from jail in Spain to die in Dresden, having told the Germans that freedom for Ireland on condition that the IRA support the Nazis was too great a price. Men who'd given me a penny or a smile in me Granny Furlongs died in Spain. Like young McGregor from Inchicore, Jack Woods from Ringsend, Charlie Mackin, big Kerry fullback, Andy Nevin. They were the future leaders of Ireland's working classes. Now they were dead in Spain. Well, at least so Dar said.
What's abdicated? That bloody King of England has abdicated and run off with the money or the crown jewels. Oh, God. I suppose them bloody paws will get another day off now. It's so very unfair.
Why was Piggy called Piggy? Why was Mr. Cunliffe dead? What was dead? When Mr. Clancy went off for days and came back with his pockets full of sweets, had he been dead? Yesterday I was 8. Today I don't feel a bit different. What's the good of being one more if you can't enjoy it? I got a card from Molly Keane and it said, "Happy birthday to Master Dominic." And Ma said,
Begob, she's trying hard to keep in with the landlady's relatives.
Couldn't make out why Ma said that. Because Molly was nice, and one time she took me to the drum to see a picture. And the only thing I didn't like was when she kissed me on the cheek with her moustache. Didn't you ever see a baldy woman? Or a bearded lady? But women don't have to shave. Or did they do it at night time when there's no one watching?
The dead is going to start walking now. And I'm glad I'm here beside Seamus. And now I remember what Ma said when the butcher said, Mrs. Cunliffe said, the pig's cheek was very hairy and not very good looking.
What do you want for sixpence? Ronald Coleman?
Jack, no, don't do it. Don't spoil the evening.
Who do you think I am? I know your ideas, but I didn't come up to Liffey on a bicycle. Get your hands off or I'll break your bloody fingers.
Tell me, Ma, when I go home, the boys won't leave the girls alone. They pull me hair and toss me comb, but that's all right till I go home. She is handsome, she is pretty, she is the belle of Dublin City. She has lovers, 1, 2, 3. Pray now tell me who they be. She is handsome, she is pretty, she is the belle of Dublin City. She has lovers, 1, 2, 3. Pray now tell me who they be.
They put the first telephone round our end of the North Circular about the beginning of 1937. And if any of the neighbours had any business beyond its location, they'd turn and nod a bit self-consciously at the back of some clever patron who was actually able to use the instrument. Commonly, it was designated in the Common International of telephone, T-E-L-E-F-O-N. But our Irish teacher said that the real Irish word was gahal, meaning vice box. And that word was at least as old as some civil servant of the Irish Free State who had justified his permanent and pensionable position. Mr. Clancy had occasion to use it once, and he walked tall for about a week afterwards. But none of the other neighbours would even speak to it until after the 13th of April, 1937. That was the date on which the Dublin building strike began.
I don't know what we'd do without the cup that cheers, sister.
Oh, indeed, Mrs. English.
I do often be sitting here with my friend, Mrs. McHugh, and I do tell her a cup of tea puts the years back in that life takes out. Isn't that right, Mrs.?
Oh, I don't know how many times I've heard you say that, Mrs.
And the people live in it. Tea and bread and sorry little else, except at the weekends when perhaps they might have a pig's cheek or the likes.
It's not good for the children, Mrs. English. Every child needs a proper protein diet. A certain amount of milk and fruit and meat every day.
Milk, fruit, meat. Do you know, sister, the only time a child around here sees fruit is at Halloween, when they dip their heads in a bath, and then they're fortunate if some other chiseler doesn't pull the string, apple, tooth and all out of their heads.
But they've only themselves to blame.
As for meat, the only time the children of the poor say meat is by the courtesy of some butcher, who's afraid the stuff will go completely off if he doesn't sell it for a few coppers.
Ah, true for you, Mrs. I've seen the shoulder steak nearly walking off the dish at closing time of a Saturday night.
And the only regular milk they ever had was when they were feeding at their mother's breasts. And then, according to Dr. Collis, they were feeding off dying mothers.
But we've been in homes only this week, Mrs. English, and we've seen with our own eyes strong men sitting about and work to be done on building schemes everywhere.
But there's a strike on, sister.
A communist plot instigated against the employers. Mr. Belton.
And praise was very far from his lips when Matt's name was mentioned.
Oh, Mrs. English, to hear you speak like that is most distressing.
I should what an old woman like me say upsets you, sister.
You are a property owner, Mrs. English, and as such, you must realize that you owe a duty to what is right. People like you are expected to lead, ma'am.
I may own a few old houses, sister, but if I was to pass a hungry man in the street who was hungry and without pay, only because he was standing by his comrades in their struggle for better conditions, the memory of my father would never forgive me.
I only hope that all this disturbance will be over when next we call, Mrs. English, because we do so look forward to meeting yourself and Mrs. McHugh.
Oh, good day to you both, sisters. Would you ever be after putting a drop of something in that messes to take away the taste of the water?
She'd always been an unusual woman, had Granny. During the big row over Parnell, she hadn't joined in the universal condemnation of him as a dirty-minded adulterer. And her attitude to the leader of the workers during the 1913 lockout was at variance with popular opinion. Larkin was sent by God, and poor old Connolly was shot for the employers of Dublin, she maintained. Oh, still in all, every man was entitled to make his profit. To her, there was no contradiction between taking rent for our rat traps and supporting men on strike. She was an autocrat who wanted socialism for everyone else. One thing she would not do, though, and she said it many times.
I'd sooner be hanged for sheep stealing than give house room to a blackleg, Lizzie.
I wish to God I knew where Cadle was. Three-handed solo is like Gaelic football with one arm.
If you had as many arms as an octopus, you wouldn't play either Gaelic football or solo any better, Giggins.
That wit of yours would be painfully amusing if there was two of it. I think I'll try 9.
Where you go? Go on, it's your lead.
Roll on tomorrow, so we get the strike pay.
Won't do much with that.
Couple of points of bet and wait till next week.
They won't be drinking any points tomorrow.
It shows how much you know about it. I'll have so much gargle tomorrow. They'll have to give me artificial respiration before the night's out.
Sure, you're on Piccadilly tomorrow, had you forgotten? Hey, that's ours.
Ah, yeah, that's right. Out in Kimmage. Is that far?
About 4 miles as far as the crow flies. That's about the only thing that can get out there. Hey, your man Cadle was out there last night.
Not out in Kimmage. I was out there, me and a few blokes from Monto.
Cadle told me he was on picket duty out in Kimmage last night.
Ah, no, not last night. He couldn't be 2 nights on the trot.
How long's this going to drag on for?
You anxious to stand behind the mixer again?
No, but
I don't care if it never ends.
You will next week when the strike pay finishes, huh?
Next week? You're joking.
Yeah, that's right. 14 weeks. This is the 12th.
Well, it can't last much longer then anyway. According to what Crawford was saying, the bosses is on their uppers.
Look, it's all very well for Crawford to speak. He's always thinking about the craftsmen all the time. When we go back, even if we win, we'll have bloody well lost.
That is the most stupid statement I ever heard. How can you lose if you win?
The craftsmen are looking for treatments, right?
Right.
They're already on 4pence an hour more than the labourers, right?
Right.
Right. So if we win the strike and we go back, we'll still be on an increase that's less than the craftsmen.
But you hardly expect to be paid as much as a man who served 7 years to his trade, do you?
You try making up a ton of muck for a plasterer or a brickie, or shifting a load of joist for a carpenter, and then tell me if we're not entitled to a decent wage. 1 and 4pence halfpenny an hour for getting your back broke. Get away, Giggles, your head's away in Ridley's.
Ah, but Giggles isn't saying that, laddie. I mean, it's true a craftsman should be paid more for serving his time.
Larkin was always talking about one big union. Well, this is his chance. Then a man be paid for being worked to death.
Ah, the employers would never stand for it.
Don't talk rubbish, Eddie. The employers would pay up this minute if they felt the pinch.
But they are feeling the pinch. Sure, Belton is nearly broke. And according to what they were saying at the union meeting on Sunday night, Cramptons and Pearsons will hardly hold out for another week.
Do you ever read the bloody newspaper?
What newspaper?
Any bloody newspaper.
I do read a newspaper.
I doubt that very much.
Slagging a man is no way to conduct a discussion. It's a sure sign that a man is losing an argument when he has to resort to slagging a man.
I was reading the Times during the week.
Aye, the Times. And my granny went to Ascot in the top hat.
In the library. In the library. Anyway, it said in the Times that all the employers in the country had gotten behind the Federation of Master Builders. And that if the strike went on for a year, they'd get the workers back even if they had to starve them into submission.
Is that so? Well, be the living Jesus, here's one they won't get back.
Not me. I'm staying on that picket line until my stomach falls out from under my chest.
Giggles! Giggles!
What is it, ma'am?
Charlie Barkley standing outside, held on to the rails, and his head was covered in blood. Go on in the head!
Come on, lads!
I'm bringing him in here, Giggles. He must have fallen, Mrs. Redden. His poor head is open, simply wide open.
Well, he's hardly drunk. I mean, it's too early for that.
But then look at the split in his head. He couldn't have fallen. More like something fell out of the sky on top of him.
Aeroplanes, ma'am. Dangerous things to be cavorting around the sky.
Aeroplanes,
Aye. Should even have ones now that takes people on excursions. They go from Baldonnel, and you know what folks is like in excursions. Me and Crook went to the Charabanc one time out to Lucan, and all the drunks simply get throwing the bottles out of the Charabanc as soon as they empty them. Now, can you imagine, ma'am, what that would have been like had they been up there in an aeroplane?
Jesus, he's in bits!
Oh, God, said the poor man. Here he is.
Find the
Bring
stuff.
him in here.
Find the
Come on. Into the front room. And put him sitting down here in the chair. Oh, take it easy now.
Sit now. Easy now.
That hole in his head is enough to get you fist.
Hey, listen, Eddie. Go over to Gales and get a drop of brandy now, quick.
Right. Yeah, that's what he needs, and a few bottles of stout.
I don't want your thirst for the moment now, Giggles. Go over to the phone and ring for an ambulance.
Phone? Sure, Jesus, ma'am, I haven't the rags.
No, Paulus, no ambulance.
Well, now, Charlie, Eddie, you'll have to have an ambulance or a plasterer, for there's a split in your head that all the stick and plaster in Dublin wouldn't cover.
Can't you see it was a policeman did this to me? That's why I want no ambulance.
What the blues you want to do that for, Charlie?
We were out picketing in Artane, Belton's place, when he sent the scabs in by the lorry load. Big, strong fellas with pickaxe handles. Jesus, don't you think it was us the police should be protecting?
Blue short scabs and Republican Paulus. Christ, I hope Dev's proud of himself tonight.
Jesus, is he dead?
No, he's just passed out. Hey, Giggles, take that cloth.
The cloth, right.
And smear the floor at the bottom of the stairs with it. So when the ambulance people come, we say he fell and hit his head, all right? And now we've got another piece of cloth.
Just a minute here. There you are. And listen, Giggles, you'll have to say that someone kicked him as well. There's a crack on the other side of his head to match the first one.
Yeah, right.
Don't tell me you're getting his Giggles.
Oh, it's Charlie Markey. He got bed up out in Belton's job. The scabs was brought in.
So I heard.
They went out with you by any chance?
No, I was out in West Cabra.
Cardle wasn't home with you then?
What makes you think Cardle was home with me?
Well, Cardle told me he was on picket duty out in Cabra West.
Well, he wasn't out in West Cabra. Only a couple of house painters, spreadies and brickies out there.
Well then, the bastard is working.
Well, maybe so, but there's nothing wrong with that as long as the job is paying the rate. Rory's working down the country at the moment.
Ah, yeah, but your Rory's legal. This bastard is scabbing, I'm sure of it.
That's a terrible accusation to make if you can't back it up now, Giggles.
I'll back it up, Stephen. I'll back it up if I have to make that bastard swear on his knees.
Strike had lasted 5 months. And now, in October, it was nearly half a year since any of the building workers had done a stroke. Strike pay had ended long ago, and they were, as Giggles said...
Jesus, Stephen. I'm on me uppers. Another month like this, and I'll be poor as a working man.
But you're unemployment should be nothing new to you, Giggles.
Being unemployed has something to be said for it. But being on strike is a different matter. Look at it like this. You're on the dole, right?
Right.
I do a few jobs for your mother, God bless her and keep her. But that's me. I always know where my next few drinks is coming from. And people doesn't even expect me to look respectable. Do you know, people even wants to buy me a drink, and why?
Generosity, I suppose.
The very thing. They see me in the street or in the pub or in the bookies, and they say, there's the old Giggles. I must buy him a pint.
Well, there's a lot to be said for this, all right.
But when you're working, you have to buy for the whole bloody bar. And then you have the problem of playing fair by your mates in the union, and the privilege of paying your dues for doing it, and maybe going to prison for principle. I mean, I don't mind serving a couple of months for a bit of honest thieving, but that business of going to prison for principle, that's only for mugs. No offence intended to yourself, Steve.
And none taken, Giggles, I assure you.
And then that time we thought poor old Cardle was a scab.
Which Cardle was that? The coal man's Cardle, the son of a spy.
Aye, that's the one.
Seed, breed and generations.
What do you mean? Seed, breed and generation?
No, we know what we know. Don't we, Frank?
Oh, you're right there, Taylor.
Seed, breed and generation. Hey, a bit of servants here with the working man. When you're ready, Gossoon. That's French, that is. Here there's Hawk in Liverpool every time they dock.
Oh, that's it now when he starts talking French.
And a very clever husband you have, ma'am. Very few around here understand English, never mind French.
Yeah, sailor's not one of the very few, Mrs. Jakes. Will you look at him now? Oh, they can bond the moss all around. Tomorrow morning you get up without a light and say I was true as pie.
Could have told you that cattle would turn out a scab. You learn to read men's eyes after years on the rolling main.
Oh, it's the rolling main now. God, that man will make a show of you. If the neighbours was anybody to be ashamed of front.
Wouldn't happen on the docks, or at sea, or in the basin or over the side. By God, a man only scabs once where our fellas come from.
But that's what I'm trying to tell you, sailor. He wasn't a scab. The man was fed up innocent.
Well, no, that's not the way I heard it. The way I heard it now was that he was sneaking away in the middle of the evening to do a stroke behind the backs of his comrades.
Well, he wasn't. I know where he was going to. And that's all that matters.
Here, hold up for Jesus' sake.
What was he doing if it's not an impertinent question?
He was doing a turning for Harry Thompson's wife. Harry's been away at sea just this year, and, well...
Business of accommodation.
Well, I'm sure he was wore out enough without me loosening his teeth for him for nothing.
You're a bastard. Why doesn't he get married anyway?
I suppose he finds it cheaper to mind someone else's nest.
Doubt if he thinks it's safer.
The seamen and the dockers, the brewery workers and the tanners all helped the building workers of the street. Indeed, it had always been the case that if one got hit by something like a strike, well, the others would rally round as best they could. Even Gil put more drink on the slate than it'd cover the roof of a fair-sized pond, and a lot of it he was never to see again. But the strike was taking its toll. The only thing kept the men together was bitterness. Indeed, they'd lost so much they couldn't get into any more debt. As Frank told Giggles...
If I was to go back to work tomorrow, the people I owe money to couldn't or wouldn't lend me enough to repay what their bill is.
And we were not the worst. Well, Dar was knocking down a few bob writing glass exit signs for cinemas when the government made their display compulsory law. Rory was working in the country in Boyle, County Roscommon, from where he sent most of his wages home. And Brendan was getting 5 shillings a week at Bolton Street Tech where he was learning to be a house painter. While he and the young Carl Goulding seemed to spend a lot more time in the market pubs than gaining benefit from the erudite Mr. Charles O'Byrne, painting teacher.
No, love. Tea's nearly ready.
Where were you yesterday?
Was that the...
No, don't tell me you were at the tech.
Where else would it be? Ask Carl, he'll tell you.
Oh, aye. Ask me brother. And I suppose Carl tells Charlie, ask Brendan. What did you say to Charlie O'Byrne?
I thought it was funny that I told him you were dead and neither Carl nor I could come in for the week. The old lady nearly died.
You doubted that. That young fella, he's a neck like a jockey's arse. And he's young, Carl as bad as himself. I don't know what the hell I'm going to say to Charlie O'Byrne when I meet him.
Well, I don't think that's something to laugh at. For a child of his age, to say that about his own father. Poor Carl is far too innocent for that blackguard.
Now, there's a pair of them in it, Kathleen.
How did you know he'd said that to Charlie O'Byrne?
I was on the Phoenix Park drama, and who sits down beside me but Charlie O'Byrne? Oh. Nearly had a stroke. You know that old squeaky, turpentine voice of his?
I do.
Mother of the Lord, God Almighty, Stephen, it can't be you. So I said, well, Charlie, there's nobody else to see it. But I heard you one time. And when I asked him where he heard it, he said, young Brendan told me and asked for time off to attend your funeral.
What did you say?
What the hell could I say? And the man ready to have a heart attack. I muttered something like, Mark Twain saying reports of me death were exaggerated. And he said he was on his way to buy me a wreath.
A kind thought, anyway.
Aye, but the miserable bastard didn't buy me a pint to celebrate me resurrection.
Who are you looking for, son? It's the telegram boy, Mrs. Clancy.
Maybe someone want to sweep.
The draw for the sweep is not for another 2 months, ma'am.
Well, then it's bad news, sir.
Who are you looking for, son?
He's looking for the beans. Hey! Number 14, son! 2 per front or basement!
Oh, I'm glad it's not for me, ma'am.
Me neither, Mrs. God grant it's not bad news.
Aye.
Thanks, son. Thanks.
Apply, mister.
No, that's all right.
What's the Frank?
It's Rory.
Sacred Heart of Jesus. He's not dead.
No, he's fallen from a 60-foot at Roscommon.
60 feet? Oh, but he can't be. I mean, can anybody be all right? Oh, sweet Jesus. Pray for us in our hour of need.
Look, I'll go over the road and ring for Joe Warden. No, better still, I'll go and see him myself.
Whenever Ma was worried, we knew. She'd clean things that were already clean. Wipe dust where no dust was. Or shine windows until the glass became as delicate as parchment. But Rory was not in any great danger. True, he was badly broken up and had suffered some horrible injuries, but nothing from which he would not completely recover in time.
Well?
He's okay. He has got a broken leg and won't be able to move around for a while, but he's all in one piece.
Oh, thanks be to God and his holy Lord.
Stephen! Stephen Behan!
Oh, what now?
And the police after
It's
you.
over!
What?
The strike, Stephen. It's over. The employers has collapsed. They've agreed to tuppence an hour.
This is one great day for me, Giggles. Me son is okay. The strike is over. And I'm not dead after all.
What's that, Stephen?
Come on, I'll buy you a pint.
A pint, I wouldn't mind a pint. Something to celebrate.
Wait,
Yeah, what?
about young Brendan and Jenny over. They wouldn't believe what that young man just been doing.
The longest building strike in the history of the British Isles had just ended in victory for the workers. True, they had suffered, but they had not withered away as Belton and Murphy had predicted. They marched bravely back to the jobs. Ragged, weak from malnutrition, and though a bit bloody, quite unbowed.
Till I go home, the boys won't leave the girls alone. They pull me hair and toss me comb, and that's all right till I go home. She is handsome, she is pretty, she is the belle of Dublin City. Knock on the door and ring on the bell, allow me through the fire you will.
And because he was little, to God he was all the more welcome. Suffer, little children, to come unto me, said our Lord. And he spread his all-enfolding arms wide and bade little Adolphus enter the kingdom of heaven. The departure of a little child from this world is not a tragic thing. In fact, it is a happy occasion. Since we are not directed to remain forever in this world, isn't it a far more fortunate departure than in the later stages of worldly sin? Let there be no tears shed for this little fellow, but let us rather learn from him how the mill of God is grinding slowly for us all, that we may be prepared.
And the angels grew lonely. Look you, because they were lonely. Now I'm a lonely too. Sonny boy.
Lizzie McHugh hadn't been married very long when her husband died. He just up and died one day without a reason. As far as anyone could see, he was owner of all that was necessary for the making of a fairly healthy human being. He had 2 arms, full set of legs. His head was in the right place, and on it he had, apparently in the correct order, eyes, ears, nose, mouth, and teeth, with a face to hold them all together, or apart. For want of information to the contrary, it was presumed that under his pink skin there was a heart, liver, lungs, that sort of thing. Well, they may not have had any children, but that in itself didn't prove anything, since he was observed to go to the outside lavatory as often as them that did have. Nevertheless, he died. It all happened a long time ago. Exactly when, no one, except maybe the widow, either knows or cares.
Come in. Ma said you wanted to fit me new coat on, Miss McHugh.
Tell your mammy I'll pitch you after school tomorrow, child. I'm too busy just now, son. I have to finish this habit.
Your dress is getting dirty on the floor, Miss McHugh. I lifted it up and hold it for you.
Well, hold it, child, but don't tug it, or you might break the needle.
It's a funny dress. I never saw a dress with a hood on it.
Well, it's not really a dress. It's to cover the people who passed on.
Where have they passed on to?
To a far better place, child. To a land where we go when we've been very good.
of tin and oak.
Tin of what?
Our Irish teachers tell us all about it. It's a place where nobody ever goes out. Is that the place where the people pass on to?
Yes, I suppose heaven must be a bit like that.
But you must be dead before you can get into heaven.
Well, that's what we mean when we talk about people passing on.
And is this a dead person's dress?
That's right, child. God love them.
I think the fellas want to play the game outside. Goodbye, Mr. McHugh.
Don't forget your fitting tomorrow, child.
But the world only dies for the dead. The live ones have to make out as best they can. So, once over the tiresome business of dispatching the deceased, Mrs. Lizzie McHugh turned a blind back to matrimony, dried her eyes, bought herself a Singer sewing machine, which she installed in a room she rented from Granny. Oh, they were well suited from the start, for each of them had two things in common: a contempt for the sickliness of the male animal, and a loathing of their own sex.
You know, Mr. Redden, she's been sitting in that window for as long as I can remember.
Aye, giggles, since old God's time. She's damn near a part of the building, you know. Still, you better not let her catch you and other fellas playing cards in the hall.
Mr. Redden.
In time, Mrs. McHugh established a reputation for herself as a dressmaker. And the kindly nuns, on hearing as how her charges were the most reasonable in the area, thought it an act of Christian charity to help a young widow. So, Mrs. Lizzie McHugh became chief shroud maker to the order. And if it's true that hard work never killed anyone, then she'd little to worry about. For there was enough of that going around, especially for someone who didn't mind working for very little. Apart from her sewing machine, her room boasted a wooden chair, one iron bed, two tailor's dummies, male and female, and a table. Winter and summer, she wore a brown cloth overcoat. And because she spent so many of her evenings down at Granny's window, the fire in her room was seldom lit. From the first, she became bulldog number 2. And even when Granny was away on business, the voice of her second-in-command could be heard shouting at the children,
"Stop harming the property! I know you, Johnny Clancy! Stop banging that tin can on the door, or I'll be up to your mother!"
The neighbours knew her to be.
Do you know from?
Ah, bloody old sply for the landlady.
Who? Miss McHugh? Oh, a generous old soul.
Ah, she's not the worst. Her back is worse than her Beethoven. God, that's a good one. Hey, lads, did you hear what I invented about her back being...
Come in here, Truck Redden.
Look, if you're going to play cards, Giggles, play cards. But if you're going to talk to Crook, talk to Crook.
All right, I can hardly borrow a woodbine off the man and then tell him to go to hell.
You don't seem to think anybody else would be in need of a smoke, do you? That for Christ's sake, will you leave it dragging it for somebody else?
Keep your shirt on here. Ah, Jesus, will you look at that? Papers all after opening. Begrudged me. What better luck could I have?
I told you before, Crook.
Don't call me Crook.
I call you what I like. And I warned about talking to my lot in the hall. And anyway, they shouldn't be playing cards in the hall.
Well, it's just up before they hear you. Leave them alone. After all, we don't own the bloody hall. And they can't play out in the team and rain.
That's enough now. I'll hear no more. Go on and put a record for me. What's the use knowing one of them gramophone things if nobody knows about it but yourself?
Yeah, it can't play. I broke the record. You should buy a new one.
And why should I spend money on a new record for when the one we have is only a little bit cracked? Can't you lift yours up when it comes to the empty saddles bit?
Good lead, lad. King of Hearts.
9. The Ace of Hearts.
Giggles, you're not believed it. That was my king.
I'm terribly sorry, laddie. I've had a chance.
You weren't watching the play.
Well, how could I with that old one in there roaring like a mad bull?
Will you let her roar? Just play a card now, will you?
Jesus, that bloody gramophone. Here. What am I doing? Here, the 10 of clubs.
What is it, son?
Well, the telegram here for E. McHugh.
Mr. and Mrs.
How could it be Mr. Giggles when there's only a Mrs.?
You couldn't be too careful over a thing like this. Suppose they meant the wrong man.
It's not addressed to a man, it's addressed to a woman. Elizabeth McHugh, E. McHugh, or Lizzie.
Could be Edward.
Lizzie is not short for Edward, that'd be Eddie. Now, whoever heard of a woman called Eddie, all right? Upstairs, son, there's now a brown coat by a window. Mrs. McHugh will be in the brown coat.
Hey, what about that new song them two English singers, Flanagan and Allen sings? Hometown.
What about it?
There's a woman in that name, Daddy. Where? Where the leafy trees are shady, where Eddie was a lady. How about that?
Giggles, you're as thick as a brick. Edie is the lady's name, short for Edith.
Jeez, would you believe that? There's me all this time, bold as brass and second only to Caruso. I mean, chatting out as praising as you like, where Eddie was a lady.
Come on, get back to the game.
Hey, I wonder what's in it.
What's a telegram? Nothing good, I bet you.
Maybe she's won the sweep.
Impossible.
Everybody's a chance.
Yeah, if they buy a ticket.
Why is it that every time a telegram comes into this street, everyone says, maybe somebody won the sweep?
Well, how would you like it if everyone said, maybe somebody's lost the sweep? It's better to think someone's had a bit of good luck than the other.
Well, it's not better. If people had only face up to the brutal reality of life instead of always looking on the bright side, people might stop and bloody well change things.
Jesus, Eddie. You've lost your real vocation. It's on the Titanic you should have been, cheating up the passengers.
It's no joke, Giggles.
Not the way you tell it is.
Look at this bloody country. Every time there's a bloody disaster, whether it's unemployment or being shot because you don't agree with someone's politics or living in a rat-infested slum like this, what do you say? What does everyone say?
Maybe we win this sweep.
They say, sure, God is good. Thank God for small mercies. We're a nation of thank Godders, that's what we are. Instead of being angry when we see a hungry kid, we say, thank God for small mercies.
Hey, was it good news, so? Did she laugh?
No, mister. She cried.
I bet she hasn't won the sweep.
Hey, maybe somebody's sick or dead or both.
But worse still, maybe she got word to move out to one of them new houses.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to pull your coat over your head, son? It's raining very heavy.
Hey, lads.
Evening, Mrs. McHugh.
Evening, boy.
Jesus, that poor girl would be drowned at this steaming out.
Doesn't seem to care.
Come on, it's your deal, Larry. What? No, a fellow playing cards for promises. Going upstairs, all right? See you later. Good luck.
Curiosity killed the cat. I bet he's gone up to see if his old one knows what's in the old telegram.
Larry's no more curious than the rest of us. Hey, Giggles.
What? Oh, sorry. I wasn't listening. I was wondering what's in the telegram.
The mystery of Mrs. McHugh's telegram was only cleared up when the doctor from the Mater said it'd be a waste of a bed to take the poor old lady into hospital. There was no hope for her now since she'd gained a temperature of 103. And wasn't she the foolish woman to sit up all night at her dead sister's side in that soaking wet brown overcoat of hers? Will people never learn the dangers of wet clothes? And she'll certainly never learn it now. And even if she did, it wouldn't be much use to her on the cotton wool prairies above. She was sinking fast. Yes, thank you and good night. That'll be 7 and 6pence, please. Unless she has a red card from the means test. No, he couldn't give a death certificate until her heart stopped beating. And when that happened, well, it'd be another 7 and 6pence. Yes, he would come back if called for, but he hoped she'd show some consideration and last the night, as he had a bridge party.
God help her, Mrs. Clancy. She's wasting away before our very eyes. Ah, but sure, it's God's holy will.
I'm sure she's for a happier place, Kathleen. A place that'll give her a little more thanks than the one she was used to.
Oh, if, ma'am, she was in the state of grace.
Now, Mrs. Kenny, there's no one can tell me that any working-class woman who's done our best on earth could possibly avoid a seat near our Lord and Saviour. I've always believed that our hell is here below, and as long as we've never tried to wrong a neighbour, the gates will open unto us.
Well, I wouldn't, Mrs. Behan, care for my priest and pastor to hear talk the likes of that. It appears to me to be quite contrary to the best teachings of the Holy Roman and Catholic Apostolic Church, of which I have long been a worshipper.
Now, what the hell do you think we are, ma'am? Black Protestants?
That I wouldn't know, Mrs. Nor would I venture to guess.
You bloody old bitch, you've got to be drunk in.
For God's sake, Mrs. Redden, you stop.
You ought to watch your tongue, Mrs. Redden, and your temper in the presence, the awful presence of death.
God's sake, Mrs. Kenny, the poor woman's not dead yet.
If you'd just only pulled the pillow from under her head, she'd be gone soon enough. In the country, ma'am, we've none of this unnatural nonsense. Ridiculous a person should take so long in the simple matter of dying.
Lord save us, Mrs. Bruno. That's an awful way to treat the sick.
But we're not talking of the sick, Mrs. Behan, only the dying. As far as I can see, it's cruel to be keeping Mrs. McHugh here and she lepping for the hereafter. 'Tis selfish, ma'am. Selfish entirely.
Wish the while. I think she wants a drink. Her poor lips are parched.
Ah, for God's sake, if you give her water, I can only warn you to revive her long enough to make it harder for her to die.
Surely, Mrs. Runo, it's our Christian duty to keep the poor woman comfortable as long as she's alive.
Is it, Mrs. Behan? And the doctor finished with her, the priest gone from her. These are the ones that knows about these things. Since they've certified her as dying, the next step must be death. Not her fault, poor soul, that she keeps on breathing. She's not to blame.
I should say not.
She'll just have to have her mind made up for her. Come on, do as I say and whip the pillow for her.
Jewel, just because she's not getting 5 shillings for washing the corpse.
Even the labourer, Mrs. Clancy, is worthy of his hire.
Look, will you stop your arguing, girls? I think she's going. Mrs. Kenny, will you put the mirror to her mouth? What do you think? The mirror, ma'am, is as clean as a new pin. May the Lord have mercy on our soul
And the souls of all the faithful departed, for the mercy of God, rest in peace. Amen.
Amen means so be a house alone and feet in a bit. 2 men, 4 feet, walking down on Collins Street. 20 pigs' feet, 1 and 2 are pelling.
Dominic Behan!
Mrs. Runo opened the brown paper parcel which lay on the side of the closed sewing machine, and taking from it a set of Mrs. McHugh's best grave clothes, laid them on the earthen bed. Then she poured a kettle of boiling water into her enamel bowl, from which bowl she had washed some of the most respectable corpses in the neighbourhood.
And in all the 20 years, not one of our customers ever complained.
If Lizzie McHugh had few friends during her lifetime, she made up for that deficiency the day she died. From far and wide, mourners came to attend her wake and drink her safely up the golden stairs. There was a sup for everyone, and lemonade and buns for the kids. And if she could have heard the remarks of the assembled multitude, she'd have been positively amazed at how her popularity had grown since she had her last gasp. A few tears were shed, and if drink helped them along, sure, what matter? The tiny room was almost full to bursting with people, and still no one was turned away who wanted to do homage to the memory of a dear old neighbour and friend. Even the Chancellor from the North Circular, who told Mr. Clancy he was awful sorry about the death of his poor brother, was let in to do homage to the memory of the man he'd played football with. And he said, as he looked at Mrs. McHugh, that the years had been awful kind to him.
Excuse me.
What are you doing up here, Domino?
Seamus and Brenda were up top and look at his dead and we got cake and fizzy stuff. We got nothing at all.
How dare you call Mr. McHugh a name like that?
That's what the big fellas call them when they're rodent dead.
Get downstairs before I lose me toe up your ass. Go on, off with you, go on, off with you now. Honest to God, sailor, I don't know what I'm going to do with that young lad at all.
That should be all right. Hey, where's all the beer gone to? It's a bit dry for the wake.
Hell, what? Fair tickets with the drink now. We've a long night's enjoyment ahead of us.
Enjoyment, Mr. Behan. I'm surprised at your choice of remark on the occasion that's in it.
That's a wake we're having, that's a bloody funeral.
James, there's still half a rasher Kenny stopping all the whiskey for the old ones in the corner. Hey, Giggins.
You want me, Mr. Behan?
I was just wondering if the male mourners of the company were to die at Druce, when their opposite numbers guzzled themselves to death on malls.
Don't be after letting them worry you. So we're at the start of the drink only. Here, something to wet your thirst.
Oh, well, that's a bit better.
Mr. Gill has been in over the best part when he gets a minute.
Well, I hope you nail it to the floor before them teetotal drunken old ones lay their thirsts on it.
It'll be as safe with me, Mr. Ben, as the secrets of the grave are, or soon will be. With Mrs. Mac herself.
There's a spot in me heart that no colleague
Doesn't she make a lovely corpse, Mrs. Renton?
She does indeed, ma'am. Asleep she might be. Mrs. Runo, we look at someone in the door. Now split the wind. Now, I never like talking about nobody, ma'am, but that Alwan, she's as mean as dishwater.
Ah, I know the type, ma'am. I know the type well.
Only here for the free drink.
Oh, sweet James!
get out of there, Dominic Behan, you little scourge. Jesus, I joke, yeah.
It's all right for you, laugh, Mr. Behan. You'd seen that when it was a sheet. Cooing and booing like a bad sheet. Nothing but the hard crosswise and a body, so it is.
It was only a childish joke, ma'am.
And that's all very well, Frank. Look at poor Mrs. Clancy. She's shattered.
Well, if we had had as much as my wife had of that whiskey, we'd be shattered too, eh, Frank?
Ah, for God's sake, Kathleen, can I not have a minute's enjoyment without you and all these old ones ruining the whole bloody evening?
Listen, do you not think we're a bit cramped for space here, Giggles?
Yeah, but it's the old corpse, you see. It's fouling things up a bit, you know. I don't mind that. Okay. You were no harm.
Excuse us for a minute.
What do you want?
Right now.
She goes. Hold the bed. What the hell are you doing with Mrs. McHugh?
We're only taking her out into the lobby, Mrs. Kelly. I'll be back in time for the funeral. Lift your hand there, Lily. Would you wheel the bed out of the way, sir? I should go.
Take the fire end of this bed.
Pull her up there.
Julie is just twitching off.
Give me your face a west.
One singer now, one song.
Shut up, you pagan.
I dread the day you forget me, Marguerite. And yet I know it soon will come. The first of all the rich decay. So different to our home, Marguerite. I would not chide thee, Marguerite. Now, my dear, what enjoy so sweet. And yet I told you, happy man, to break my heart. Marguerite, no, I told you, happy man, to break my heart.
Hey, what happened to me drink? I only left it there for a minute while I was shifting out Mrs. McHugh. Who swiped me drink? Jesus, it's not nothing sacred.
Oh, sacred God! Hey! Listen here, will one of you so-called mourners kindly remove your excuse for drink from me door so that I can get to me bed?
That excuse for drink, as you so reverently call it, Mrs. Kelly, happens to be our old friend and neighbour, Mrs. Lizzie McHugh. Kindly have a bit of respect for the woman in the night.
Cantankerous old bitch. Just because she doesn't drink herself. All right, ma'am, all right, I'm coming.
Where was I now, missus?
I hadn't been listening, Mrs. Runo, I'm sorry.
You know what? That one thinks she's a step above buttermilk.
Don't mind lazy moose, ma'am. To Jesus, she has a special knife for the children to eat their fish.
Anyways, he was, begging your pardon, ma'am, damn near on top of her on the stairs. I looked at him accusing like, and I said,
How could you, Mr. Kane? And your wife had me called into bed. Well, anyway, he turned to me. Without a comer, he said. God forgive me, ma'am, but I'm so distracted with grief, I hardly knows what I'm doing.
Oh, no, they shouldn't be laughing at the dirty old man. I never had a nurse look since.
I never did.
Lost a good job in Guinness and a half. God always punishes the wrongdoer,
That's true.
He's that drunk, he doesn't know whether he's going to sing or his son. Silence, please.
Oh, silence.
Shut up.
God. Ladies and gentlemen, on this suspicious occasion, I think it is in order that we pass a vote of thanks to the publican who provided the refreshment for our little evening.
Giggles, it's a week. And God, look after the corpse.
You're right, sailor, you're right, me lovely son. And we'll have 2 minutes silence for the woman who made all this possible. None other than our old friend and neighbour, Lizzie McHugh.
And when the bell rings, let the lady come out fight.
And it's Everton for the cook.
Home ground or no
Need someone like you. A pal. But there's no. I like to leave it all.
Tomorrow on RTE1, Magnum PI discovers that trouble comes in all sizes.
Hiya, fellas. Where you going?
Going to get my jacket. I don't know whether to believe you or not, but I'm going with you.
No! I can't put you in any danger. I've got to do this on my own.
I can't let you go out by yourself with a giant like Stuart just waiting to blow you away.
A little man with big troubles. That's Magnum PI tomorrow here on RTE1 at 8:05. Landmark continues the series Man of Property and looks at 2 small farms operated as one. That's on RTE2 at 8:30. Here on 1 now, the A-Team.
10 years ago, a crack commando unit was sent to prison by a military court for a crime they didn't commit. These men promptly escaped from maximum security stockade to the Los Angeles underground. Today, still wanted by the government, they survive as soldiers of fortune. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the A-Team.